All right, let's go on the record. We have two matters before the court this afternoon. They're all related to the same matter. File 231073 GZ, and GZ is a suffix we don't use too much, but it has to do with a petition for dealing with a dangerous dog. Petition right in front of me. And the other files, which are 231163OM and 231164OM, those have to do with two citations that were written under the county animal control ordinance for a dog at large and a dog bite. The petition filed by the animal control officer, Kyle Merck, now supported by prosecuting attorney Deborah Davis, alleges that the dog was fit the definition of a dog, other than that it was over 6 months old. A dog attacked or bit a person, and that the dog caused a serious injury or death to an individual or dog. The matter was set for original hearing in July, and there was some confusion at that time. The citations regarding the dog bite and animal at large were also held at that same time. At that time, the defendants, Mr. and Mrs. Tiara, were here. The matter was set for hearing for, I believe the date was September 22nd. And then that was adjourned. At the hearing on August 10th, it was a pretrial on the criminal charges and a hearing regarding the petition on the dog. Deborah Davis was here, and Mr. Timothy Reed was here on behalf of the complainant, Cinda Miller, and Kyle Merck was also here. They asked that I remove the dog from the M66 property, and there was some discussion about that. In fact, what should have happened in hindsight is once this petition is filed, the dog is supposed to be taken into the custody of the animal control office and go to doggy jail. Under the statute, there are two things going on. The old animal control dangerous dog ordinance, which is a very old statute, starts at 287.321. Once a complaint is sworn, the magistrate or the court shall issue an order to show cause, petitioning the owner to show cause why the dog should not be destroyed. So this is a petition to put the dog down. If I find that the animal is a dangerous animal that caused a serious injury or death, after hearing, the court shall order destruction of the animal. I don't have discretion. If I find something less, I have some other options. The statute defines a serious injury as a permanent or serious disfigurement, impairment of health, or serious impairment of a bodily function or person. So that is the show cause regarding the dog. The tickets are written under the county animal control ordinance, which I helped write when I was prosecutor, before I took the bench back in the 2000s. The last version, I think, was 2012. I had it up here. Tell me I lost it. Those are written under section 10.1 and 10.4 of the county animal control ordinance. So Mr. Kurt Richardson is currently counsel of record for the defendants. They had a previous attorney who asked to have the matter adjourned, which was frankly a nuisance, but he claimed there were some discovery issues and I granted the continuance. It's hard for me to find a whole day or half day to set something, but we had an opening today, so I rescheduled the matter for today. So Mr. Richardson, my understanding, and Ms. Davis or Mr. Reed, you can both interject. This is a hearing regarding his responsibility for the ticket, dog at large and dog bite, and the hearing regarding the show cause to have this animal put down. Ms. Davis, is that your understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, wow, I lost the. Under the county dog ordinance, and some of this tracks the statute under the definition section in Article 2. A dangerous dog is defined as any dog which unprovoked in an aggressive manner commits a severe attack on any person or other animal. Article 10 is the section that allows the animal control officer to issue a citation. So first charge is section 10.1, dog at large. A dog is running at large, unaccompanied by its owner, or is engaged in lawful hunting and is not under the reasonable control of its owner, with or without a license attached to its collar. A dog bite is a dog licensed or unlicensed that is attacked or bitten a person or other animal. The sanction for those charges under the punishment section of the ordinance is, I thought it was $250. Fine not to exceed $500. And I guess I'll leave it at that. And Mr. Richardson, I understand that you're somewhat at a disadvantage just coming into this case, but I think you called the parties and asked for adjournment and they did not agree. And I would not have agreed. The Millers have been here about 5 times trying to get to this day. And so we're here. So Ms. Davis, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there anything else you wish to say before we start?
Just to clarify, so that there is no confusion, it's my understanding that any testimony that's presented by the defense today, that this is the hearing on both the tickets as well as the petition to put the dog down. So I don't think we have any Fifth Amendment issues at this point. TJ had raised a concern.
The only concern I had is if the OM tech signifies a misdemeanor, though I don't believe there's jail associated with the penalty, they are misdemeanors. That I believe if the court was not having a trial today on the dog bite and the dog at large, that there should be a Fifth Amendment reading to Mr. and Mrs. Diata as potential future liability criminally on that issue.
Well, they're both being tried at the same time.
And that was my point. If they're at the same time, the court is joining them together on that, then that is not needed.
All right, it is punishable up to 90 days in jail and a fine of up to $500. All right, Mr. Richardson, are you ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. I guess I'm just inquiring what the court's ruling at the pretrial as far as incorporation for the civil petition for Attorney Reed and the complainant, and what procedurally occurred. So I see that the petition was filed by the officer and the prosecuting attorney's office. So I'm trying to.
I didn't have any notes regarding any civil proceeding at this juncture.
I think what he's referring to is the permissive joinder that the court allowed to have Mr. Reed on behalf of the complaining witness, Cinda Miller, join in and adopt the petition of the prosecution and the animal control. Looking at the court rules, it appears that MCR 2.206A1 regarding permissive joinder applies, as all persons can join as plaintiff if they assert a right to relief jointly and severally, or in the alternative in respect of these items arising out of the same transaction. So there's one dog, there's one incident that the parties are joining together for the petition. So I don't know if it was necessary for him to file a written petition that says the exact same thing as what the prosecution.
Well, we're not making any finding in any civil case here today.
No, the GZ case, Your Honor, is a civil action under the
Yes.
statute, and I filed an appearance whereby adopted and incorporated by reference the prosecution or the animal control's petition. And the reason for that is it's an SCAO form petition. There's really no point in checking any other, it's the exact same petition that would be filed as it's a court-driven form. And so we adopted that. I was here at the last hearing. The court acknowledged that. I believe everybody knew that, as I got calls from both attorneys that had appeared on behalf of Diatas.
We're going to address these issues. We're not going to make any finding regarding civil damages.
And correct, simply here on nothing more than the civil petition for destruction of the animal.
Yes,
That is what my appearance was for.
and you're here to, I guess, advocate for that. All right, Ms. Davis, you ready to call a witness or?
Yes, Your Honor. The people will call Deputy Kyle Merck.
Good afternoon. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
We'll try.
Deputy Merck, would you state your full name and spell your last name for the record, please?
My name is Kyle David Merck, last name M-U-R-K.
And you are employed by the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Department as the animal control officer?
Yes, I am.
And as part of your duties, did you investigate a situation regarding a Douglas Diata?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall what date that was?
I do not off the top of my head. March 30th.
If I were to look at your report and tell you it was in May, does that ring a bell?
I do not remember the specific date. No.
All right, give me a moment here. Did you generate a police report as part of your investigation?
Yes, it would have been auto-generated by
And
Central Dispatch.
do you recall this incident being at 66735 M66 in Sturgis, Michigan?
I believe that is the victim's address.
And were you called out there by the victim?
Yes, I was.
And what were you called out there for?
A dog attack that had occurred with the victim responding to the hospital.
How close in time to this dog attack were you called?
I was called, the original call came in at about 15:30, 15:45. And I responded out the next day.
And did you meet with the complainant?
Yes, I did.
Is that Cinda Miller?
Yes,
After meeting with Cinda, did you interview the owner of the dog, Douglas Diata?
I did. I do not remember if it was that exact specific day, but I made contact with him after I made contact with Cinda.
From your interview with Mr. Diata, what did you determine about the ownership of the dog and whether the dog was licensed?
So at that time, I did not know if the dog was licensed, but Mr. Diata at that time provided me with the rabies vaccination that he had on his file, and as well as his recount of what had happened that day.
And what did he tell you had happened?
He advised that Miss Miller was
Objection
at the
hearsay, Your Honor.
Your Honor, it's a statement against interest by the defendant himself.
Which is an exception to the hearsay rule. The objection's overruled. You can answer the question.
So I made contact and he had advised that he was leaving for the day. And at that time, Miss Miller was getting her mail from the mailbox. And that at that time she had waved and approached him And during that time, when he was leaving for the day, is when the dog got out and made it through his gate that he has to unlock to get out of. And that's when the situation had happened.
And did you view this gate that was to Mr. Diatta's property?
Yes,
And can you describe the gate to the court?
it is a double gate, approximately 6 to 7 foot tall standardized gate that swings on both hinges. And in the middle is where it is secured with your standard chain or padlock type device.
Did Mr. Diatta say whether the dog was on a leash at the time?
He did not.
Did he describe to you what had occurred as far as the dog going toward Ms. Miller?
So he had told me that the dog had got and went to Cinda, and that he responded as well as the incident was occurring to remove the dog from Cinda, throw the dog back on the property, and then he had taken Cinda to the hospital.
When you say put the dog back onto the property, where did he say that this incident occurred in relation to his gated property that he owns? Like inside his property or
Not inside.
outside?
On their shared, I don't know if you would call it an easement, their one drive that responds back to the other residences on that same dirt drive.
Okay, so there's a dirt roadway, and that is where the access to his property is?
Correct. They have a shared drive with multiple residents that are back on the drive.
Did you observe any of the injuries to Cinda Miller?
Not specifically that day, as it was the next day she was back from the hospital. They were bandaged. So the photos that I saw were taken by the hospital that day, and that was what was submitted to me and was submitted into evidence.
How old is this dog?
I do not know an exact age. It's a younger dog, but it's not under 6 months. It is an over 6 month old dog.
And is that determined by Mr. Diatta's statements?
And I believe the rabies vaccination he gave me, I don't have an exact date, but I believe it was around a 1-year-old dog.
And what type of dog is this?
It is an Akita.
And what do you know about the Akitas, like size-wise?
Just that they're a larger breed, Japanese snow dog style.
Do you know if the dog was wearing a collar at the time that it came at Miss Miller?
I do.
Since the date of this incident with Ms. Miller, have you spoken with Mr. Diatta?
Yes, I had to reissue him the original bite and dog at large citations due to my transposing some numbers. I was advised by the court that some stuff needed to be switched and moved around to be in the proper position. So he was reissued those citations.
Do you know if he has taken any steps to further secure his property?
I was told that he put in an electric fence around his property for the dog in question. But I have not visibly seen them. He gave me original a quote the day that the incident that I had made contact with him, that he had already had a quote lined up to have this done. But at that time it was not done. And I have been told since then that it has been completed.
Did he say why he had gotten a quote for an electric fence prior to this incident with Ms. Miller?
Not to my
Objection, relevance.
We're gonna go to whether or not he believed that his dog was an issue as far as getting out of the property.
I'll allow the answer.
Not to my recollection.
Did you have any other complaints about this particular Akita dog being at large prior to this incident with Ms. Miller?
I had.
Objection, Your Honor. There's no 404B notice here. Any prior bad acts or there's no notice of any other prior act. We're here for the alleged events on the petition that happened on May 10th, 2023.
Ms. Davis?
Your Honor, I don't believe it's being referred to for the purpose of using it as a prior bad act, but to determine whether or not there was a continuing pattern of his reckless or negligent behavior in allowing this animal to be running at large. In addition, as part of the discovery, the people did present a written statement by a witness who was here and able to testify regarding the dog being at large previously.
All right, that was an issue.
Your Honor, I guess I'd supplement my objection by saying that information I received was just some kind of informal statement, an incomplete investigation, not an actual complaint, is my understanding.
If I may, Your Honor, in the GZ case, it would be relevant in the determination of the dangerous dog as checked by the box on the complaint form, as one of the definitions of dangerous dog is attacking another animal on that animal's property. And that is, I believe, the reference in which Ms. Davis is alluding to, which also would constitute the animal to become a dangerous animal, which is on square with the GZ case.
Well, it goes to two things. It goes to whether or not this dog is a dangerous animal, and it goes to whether or not the defendants knew or had reason to know it was a dangerous animal. MRE 404B is the quintessential bad acts, other wrongs, rule of evidence. B1 talks about what it is. Second, section 2, the prosecution in a criminal case shall provide reasonable notice in advance of trial of the potential notice of good cause shown if there's other evidence it intends to adduce at trial and the rationale behind it. So it was previously discussed. They've been provided with that information. The witness is here to testify about it. So the fact that he knew about it, I guess we could bring in the facts of it would be hearsay. And there's someone who can actually testify. So you can allow this evidence as specifically relevant to the GZ case, as Mr. Reed argues.
Thank you, Your Honor. Deputy Merck, are you aware of any other incidents of this dog being at large?
Yes, I was. We had one call from another neighbor, Mr. Luke Eicher, that had called in a complaint that he wanted only on the record at that time as informational, that Mr. Diato's dog had attacked his dog in the yard, and he provided photos and a statement at that time.
And
When
what
was
did,
that?
The original time that I made contact with Mr. Eicher was the day that I had met with Cinda, and he had advised me of that information.
Your Honor, I guess per your ruling, I'd object to the contents of this. The fact that this witness is aware of it is
So far, that's it. Well, if Mr. Eicher is here, we'll hear from him. So that's for the only purpose it's admitted at this point.
I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Deputy. So you responded to this call the next day, right?
Correct.
So you weren't there when this happened?
Correct.
You didn't see any of this?
Correct.
Did you observe Miss Miller's vehicle at any point?
I do not recall if it was there when I made contact with her at her residence.
Okay. And did you have your body cam on when you were interviewing the defendant?
I did not, because I do not have a body cam at this time.
When you showed up to interview the defendant, was the dog aggressive?
The dog was not on scene at that time. When I made contact with Mr. Diata, he was outside of his residence with the gate locked, and the dog was not seen.
Okay, and your understanding is that, well, you said there's a joint road, right, that goes into all the properties?
Correct.
What kind of substance is that road made out of?
It is a dirt road.
Okay, and is there a driveway anywhere?
Driveway, I guess I don't understand.
Does the defendant have a driveway to that dirt road?
His gate is right up next to that road. So if he has what you would consider a driveway, it is a matter of feet from that shared.
So there's feet from the gate to the shared road.
Correct.
Is the driveway gravel?
I would call it dirt, but it's a dirt rock.
Okay, it's different than the dirt road.
I guess I don't understand your question.
Is the gravel driveway outside the gate different than the dirt road? Okay, and your understanding is that this dog biting incident happened in the immediate vicinity right outside the gate?
I would say on the easement of all of the access to their residences,
How would you know that it's the easement?
because it's one dirt drive that you have to take back to get to every property that's on the.
You don't have a survey or a map or anything?
I do not.
Okay. So you don't know whether it's an easement or what it is, right?
Correct.
I mean, through your investigation, your understanding is that this incident happened near the gate. Is that correct?
An answer.
You can answer it. Go ahead.
So can you repeat?
This incident happened somewhere near the gate and the feet leading up to the road?
It happened in their easement between his gate and the mailbox.
Okay, and you don't have any idea where his defendant's property line is, correct?
I do not.
You never talked to the defendant about this alleged previous attack?
It was not filed through dispatch as a Mr. Iker wanting a police response. It was documented only for informational purposes.
So you never talked to anybody else other than this Mr. Iker who just wanted a document?
Correct.
You know Cinda Miller previously?
Aside from this instance, no, I do not.
You didn't go to school with her?
No.
You have any information about the location of where Cinda Miller's car was parked? Was it moved? Do you have any information about that?
So the only information that I know is that she was stopping to get her mail. And I don't know a specific location as where she was parked when she got it from.
Did you find her vehicle by the mailboxes when you investigated this?
No,
Did you ever see her vehicle?
not to my knowledge, no.
No further questions.
You were there the next day, correct?
I was there the next day,
So you weren't there the day of the attack.
correct,
And so when you refer to the incident, you're referring to an attack where this dog attacks Cinda Miller.
yes.
Thank you. No other questions.
Let's see if we can pin the date down. You were kind of all over the place. Was the date of this May the 10th?
I do not recall the exact date that it was called in.
How about if I show you the ticket? Will that help you?
Yes, May the 10th is what I wrote on the ticket.
So was that your understanding of the date that this happened?
Yes,
I'm sure it'll come in, but it's the charging document, the citation that was issued with his signature on it. Do you own an Akita?
I do, Your Honor.
How long have you had it?
I think it's been about 4.5 months right now, Your Honor.
I was gonna warn everybody this was gonna happen. 2/22. I saw it this morning. I saw it this week. Aaron sent me a reminder.
Yeah.
Said at 2:22, the alarm's gonna go off.
My secretary's.
I was in Florida a few years ago and a tornado hit Siesta Key. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning. All the phones went off at the same time. Scared the heck out of me. Blew the roof off the condo next door. Anyway, that's our emergency system testing. All right, does that raise any questions for anyone else or from Officer Merck?
No, and just briefly, Deputy Merck, the person that you spoke to that you know to be Douglas Diata, is he here in the courtroom today?
Yes, it is.
And could you point out what he's wearing, describe him for
He's
the record?
wearing his doctor's uniform for his profession.
Your Honor, may the record reflect he's identified the defendant.
It may, why don't you do venue while you're at it?
And we had discussed earlier that you went to this area on M66 in Sturgis. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's right.
And is it your understanding that this all happened in this same vicinity in St. Joseph County, Michigan?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. You can step down. At least somebody knows how to do this.
You want to sit there, face the judge, raise your right hand, he's going to swear you in.
Good afternoon. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief. Thank you. Please have a seat. I always wondered what would happen if there was a tornado in the middle of an emergency test.
We would all perish.
We would all ignore it. I mean, that may happen again, so just bear with us. Thank you.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Amanda Eicher,
And can you spell your last for the record, please?
Eicher.
And Amanda, can you tell the court where you live?
I live on 66721 M66, Sturgis, Michigan.
And you heard a little bit of testimony regarding Douglas Diata's property as well as Cinda Miller. Is that a yes?
Yes,
Are they your neighbors?
they are our neighbors.
And is there a shared driveway that runs back or runs in that property that allows access off of M66 to all those properties?
Yes,
And how long have you lived there?
we moved in 2015.
Okay. And do you have a dog?
We do have a dog,
What kind of dog do you have?
a golden doodle.
Is that a small dog?
It's a large dog, medium-sized dog.
So it's a golden retriever and a lab. What's the mix?
Golden retriever and poodle mix.
Okay. And how many acres roughly do you own, do you believe?
About 2.5 acres.
Okay. And is your property situated, I guess, as you come in the driveway off M66, whose property in that neighborhood do you encounter first?
Doug and Sierra's.
And so as you're coming into that driveway off M66, and I always hate doing this because some people aren't great with directions, but would their property be to the north or to your left-hand side if you're driving back?
Their property is to the north.
Okay. And where is your property associated with their property?
It is right next to it.
And so you have to continue driving, which would be easterly,
Drive east, and then our driveway is the next one.
and you turn left or right into your driveway?
Turn left.
So you turn north
North.
into your property. Okay. And is it your understanding that that driveway is a shared easement for all properties that are on that drive?
Yes,
Okay. And was there a time in 2023 in which you encountered a dog that you believe came off the Diata's property?
That's you.
I guess
You must be extra special.
they're really worried about me.
yes, there is. I believe it was in March of 2023.
And can you explain to the court what happened in that incident?
Yes, I was walking my dog, and we were in our yard, and we were on our drive going into the house. When you pull into our drive, not on the shared drive, but onto our drive, there's a spot where we park our cars, and I was right next to the spot where we parked our cars. My back was turned, walking in towards the house, and out of nowhere, the dog, the Akita, was attacking my dog. It came out, my back was turned, so I didn't see it coming, and he was immediately on my dog. He attacked her 3 times, came at her, came back, came at her, came back. She was cowering and hiding behind my back. I screamed and yelled at the dog. One of the times when it came off my dog, it charged me. I called Doug while the attack was happening, and the dog was still in my yard. Doug was at work. He said, "I'm not there."
Objection, hearsay.
Statement made by the defendant.
Sustained. I mean, the objection is overruled.
Doug said, "I'm at work. I will call my wife." And that was the end of the phone call.
And did anybody show up on your property?
I never saw anybody. No, later I talked to Sierra, but I never saw her.
Okay. And did the dog just leave?
After the dog attacked my dog and then went, he was still in my yard, charged me in my yard, in my drive right next to my house. And then he went off of the property back onto the shared drive and around the corner to the fence, and I never saw him again.
Were you fearful at that time?
Absolutely.
Are you still fearful of that dog?
Absolutely.
Did you have to take your dog to the vet?
Yes, the next day, my dog had several bites and lacerations, puncture wounds, all over her backside. We took her to the vet. We let the Diatas know we were doing that.
Just let me stop for a minute. When Mr. Diata told you he was at work, where did you understand that he worked?
Battle Creek.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Do you still have fear or reservation about being out in your yard with your dog?
Absolutely.
And so you did report this to Douglas Diata?
Yes, I talked to him on the phone. My husband also called him, and I talked to Sierra.
Okay. And you told them what happened?
Absolutely.
I don't think we've established, she's also present, but Sierra and Douglas Diata are husband and wife, and they share this property. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And so you indicated you were on your property with your dog.
Absolutely.
And so you didn't have your dog on a leash, correct?
No, I did not.
And you didn't see where the Diata's dog came from.
No,
Had you seen that dog prior to this particular incident?
on that day, I had not seen that dog.
But prior to that day, so,
Absolutely, several times. He has been out before.
and had you ever communicated that to the Diatas
Absolutely. We've talked to them several times about it,
about the dog being out?
about the dog being out. This was not the first time the dog came at our dog.
And did you tell them about that at that time?
Absolutely, we did. Sierra came and got the dog.
So the previous incident that she actually came and retrieved the dog from your property?
Yes, that was in 2022.
Okay. Thank you. I have no other questions, Your Honor. Oh, Mr. Richardson may have some questions for you. Okay.
Good afternoon. Mr. Diata's dog has never bit at any person in your family, right?
Not in my family.
Okay. And has your dog previously been on Mr. Diata's property?
Before the Diatas owned the property, the previous owners allowed us to use the property. And so when the Diatas moved in, our dog was used to going to that property. And before the fence was up, yes, she did go on that property.
Does she bark at the defendant and his wife?
I'm sure she barked at them.
And they erected a fence?
They did put up a fence.
As far as this alleged attack on your dog, do you have any documentation of this?
Yes, we took pictures. My husband called and reported it, and the vet would have documentation as well.
Do you provide any documentation to any of the attorneys and
We
prosecutors?
sent pictures to them. We filled out the form.
Was there a complaint or a form?
There was a written statement form that we filled out.
And what exactly were the injuries? You said bite marks, lacerations?
Yes, on my dog's backside and on her leg.
How many?
At least 3 different locations.
Did you send a photo to the defendant or his wife?
Yes,
And how many lacerations did that photo have in it?
that one was probably just,
No further questions, John.
Thank you. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll call Luke Iker, Your Honor. Stand before sitting down, face the judge, raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Good afternoon. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
You please state your first and last name and then spell your last for the record.
Iker. Iker is spelled E-I-C-H-E-R.
And was that your wife that just testified previously?
Yes, sir.
And you live at the same address that she gave?
Yes.
And you heard her describe an incident with your dog, and then the Akita dog that belongs to the Diatas, correct?
Yes.
And you were not present for that, correct?
No, I was not.
Okay, so when I ask you questions, I'm not asking you to tell me what you heard from anybody, but just then, after you were told about that, what did you do regarding that incident?
Sure. I work about a mile away from home.
Where do you work?
So I'm a pastor at Grace Christian Fellowship.
Okay,
So I received a phone call and she was yelling that our dog was just attacked and that the neighbor's dog was still out.
and what did you do then?
So I immediately ran out and jumped in my van and drove too fast to my home. And I drove looking for the neighbor's dog just to see if it was still out, if I could see where it was. I didn't see it and I went into the house and met my wife.
And based on that reaction that you immediately left, did you have reason to be fearful about that particular dog?
Yes, I was concerned because we had an incident the night before.
Explain that.
I have to take our trash bin out to the end of the shared driveway every Tuesday for trash.
Okay.
And as I was taking the trash bin out, nearing the end of the drive.
And I'm gonna stop you. When you say near the end of the drive, is that your drive?
No, that's the shared drive.
And so that would be almost M66?
Yeah, so I'm walking along the shared drive. The Diatas fence is to my right, and I saw the neighbor's dog go underneath the fence and came running out onto the driveway. So I immediately stopped, and he sat there looking at me, and I was concerned. I didn't know if he was gonna play nice or if it was gonna be a dangerous situation. So I didn't move for quite a bit. Tried to talk nice to the dog, did everything I knew to be calm and help the dog. And eventually I was able to drop the bin off and I tried to call the neighbors. Nobody answered, but then I texted them and they immediately came down and got the dog.
So the night before the incident your wife described, you had let the Diatas know, hey, your dog is out, enough concern to where you text them to please come get it.
Yes, sir. And they tried to fix the spot where I saw the dog come out from under the fence that night.
And so I believe the testimony by your wife was owned about 2.5 acres there, is that?
Yes, sir.
Are all those,
Could I stop you for a moment? Did you wait to go back to your house? You dropped a bin off, you texted them. Did you stay there and wait?
I waited at the gate until they came and got the dog.
So you didn't try to get past the dog?
No.
Okay. How long did
It
that
was
take?
tense. I will say it felt tense to me.
were you fearful that you were going to be bitten?
I didn't know. He was giving me a look. I don't have a dog like that, but the look, I just didn't know how he was going to respond to me.
Was it dark out?
Yes, it was after dark.
And I believe, and thank you, Your Honor. And then I'm back to about being about 2.5 acres. Are all of the properties in that little, I'm gonna call it a subdivision. I realize it may not be the definition of a subdivision, but the properties that utilize this shared drive or easement that's been described, are they all around the same size?
No, they vary in size.
Do you, and your wife testified that the previous owners of the Diatas property allowed you access to their property?
Yes, we had trails that kind of went through all the properties and they allowed us to walk along theirs as well.
And do you know how large that lot is?
It's actually 2 lots. I considered buying it when it was for sale.
But how big is it? I mean, do you think it's 5 acres
It was about 4.9 with
Okay.
the 2 lots.
combined?
Yes,
So the Diatas have roughly 4.9 acres of that
yeah,
size
somewhere
lot.
around there.
And after the incident with that your wife described about the Diata's dog attacking your dog, did you contact Doug Diata directly?
Yes, I did.
And did you tell him what happened?
Yes.
And what was Douglas Diata's response?
Well, we were both a little fired up, but Doug did say I will rectify the situation.
Do you know what that meant?
That's all I knew, was that he said he would rectify the situation.
So he didn't deny that it happened.
No,
And did you send or did your wife send the pictures of the puncture wounds to Mr. Diata?
I can't remember if it was from my phone or hers.
But you were part of that?
Yes,
And you believe that was in March of this year?
yes,
And have you seen the gates to the Diata's property open since August of 2023?
yes, sir.
And was there anybody around that you could see?
I've seen both in the last 2 weeks. We drove by on a Sunday and the gate was open and nobody was present. And another time I drove by and the gate was open and Sierra was present and the dog was also present.
But the time prior that the dog got out, the gate was actually closed, but the dog was outside of the fence, correct?
Yes, in our case, it was.
And so. Okay. Thank you, Pastor Riker. I have no other questions. I believe that Mr. Richards may have some questions for you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So you just testified, you saw the gate open, but have you ever seen the gate open with the dog alone?
No, not that I know of recently.
So it's possible they took the dog with them or he was in the house or something.
Of course, the concern is we don't know where the dog is. If we see the gate open, having had an incident on our property, it leaves us to question, where is the dog? Is the dog out? Is the dog in? We don't know.
Did you report this previous incident, the trash bin incident?
No, I did not call that in.
Okay. And you didn't file any kind of report or anything like that?
No, the only time I called Central Dispatch was when our dog was bitten.
And have you ever interacted with the dog through the defendant's gate?
Yes.
How have you done that?
Well, we've talked. I mean, it's been, I've had really good conversations with Doug.
Interacted with the defendant's dog through his gate?
Are you saying dog or
The dog?
Yes.
Sorry, I
dog,
thought
not
you were
dog.
saying if I
Yeah,
interacted
the
with Doug
defendant's
through the gate.
dog through his gate.
Yes, I've tried to, I guess, in a sense, form a relationship with the dog because I didn't want the dog to, I wanted the dog to know who I was.
So have you put your hands through his gate?
I've held it to the gate, yes, like this.
Okay, so maybe you're not afraid that it's gonna bite you by doing that, obviously.
In fact, when I took the trash bin out, I guess I felt like that was a way to try to show the dog that I was safe by presenting myself like that in a very slow and calm way. That's all I knew how to do there.
Do you have any livestock or chickens?
I have chickens.
Have they ever been attacked by the dog?
No,
And just to clarify, how long were you standing with the dog down at the gate in this trash bin incident?
it was a few minutes.
But it didn't attack you?
No, the dog did not attack me.
Okay. No further questions?
I have nothing further.
Thank you. You may step down. What's next?
Cindy Miller, Your Honor.
All right, let's take a
Okay,
recess.
yes, sir.
And let's come back at, it's 2:39. Let's come back at 2:50.
Okay, thank you.
This would be a good time for everybody to take a little recess. Are you going to show any pictures?
Yes, I have some pictures.
All right, thank you.
No.
All right, we're back on the record. Debbie, I'm gonna put your thing in a waiting room. We have to deal with that feedback loop we
Yeah,
get.
give me a second here. I think I just have to
Turn your sound down.
I think I just turned off the speakers. Now it should be good.
All right, we've returned to the matters. People versus Douglas Diata. 23-1073 GZ, which is a petition regarding a dangerous dog. and 231163 and 231164, dog at large and dog biting a person. The prosecution is ready to call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the GZ case, we would call Ms. Cindy Miller. Walk up here, like the two before you, right before you sit down in front of the judge, if you can face him, raise your right hand and he will swear you in.
Good afternoon. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Please have a seat. Would you state your name for the record?
Cinda Miller, Miller,
And how do you spell your first name?
Cinda.
An autocorrect will make it say Cindy.
Probably yes.
Miss Miller, where do you reside?
66735, no, sorry, 66735 M66.
And is that Sturgis?
Yes,
That in
Could
St.
you
Joseph
bring that
County?
box over here?
yes.
Pardon, Your Honor?
Could you get the box? between
Yep, I
us?
got it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Just in case.
And you heard some testimony earlier today from the Ikers. And are the Ikers your neighbors?
Yes, they live a couple properties down from us.
And there was some discussion about a cul-de-sac or a private drive or an easement. It's been called several things today. Are you familiar with that?
Yes,
And is that how you obtain access to your property from M66?
yes, it is.
And how long have you resided at the current house that you're in?
About 6.5 years.
And have you always utilized that driveway as your access point?
Yes,
And is your mailbox in that common driveway?
yes. The driveway kind of lies in from the north and the south. And the mailboxes are in the middle between by M66.
And when you say mailboxes, are there more than one mailbox there?
Yeah, all the mailboxes for the people who live down there are at that spot.
Okay,
Up near M66.
near M66?
Yes, by the road, by M66, yes.
And they're placed in proximity to M66, like you would see other mailboxes up and down M66?
Yes,
And so, have you ever seen the mail person deliver the mail?
the only time I see them drive back to us is if we have something that doesn't fit in the mailbox.
And so they deliver it from the roadway by pulling up alongside the road and putting it in, like they would a mailbox on any other road.
Right.
And so in order to collect your mail, you have to go to that mailbox on the shared driveway and open the mailbox and get it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to take you back to May 10th of 2023. Do you recall that day?
Absolutely. It was my daughter's birthday and I will never forget.
Okay. And at some point in time, did you pull off of M66 near your mailbox on May 10th of 2023?
Yes, I had been painting a house in Sturgis and I was returning home and I came into the side from Sturgis, pulled onto the drive there and stepped out to get my mail.
And when you say stepped out, did you step out of a vehicle?
Yes,
Were in the vehicle by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. And were you parked and how were you parked near the mailbox?
I was off of M66, but just inside, so it's by the mailbox, which is very close to the road, but off the road there by the mailboxes.
So, Your Honor, Ms. Davis is going to pull up for demonstrative evidence a map of the area that will hopefully have outlined what GIS shows as the actual common drive that has been discussed.
I think you saw me in the waiting room though.
Okay, if I can draw your attention to the TV screen, and I'm gonna walk over where there's a sign that says, you see where I'm pointing that says M66? Or what, it did? But is this area here what you refer to as the area where the mailbox is at?
Is the yellow line the road?
This M66.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And then the mailboxes would be kind of like just off of that, right where it starts to turn into dirt, like right up there by the,
And I'm pointing
in the middle,
this area.
yes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And so was your car, when you pulled off the road, parallel or perpendicular to M66? Meaning, was your car pointed like this or like
No, I
this?
pulled in right where it curves kind of in the grass, pulled right in there as if I'm gonna drive down to go home, and got out to walk over there to the mailboxes and get my mail.
So my pen where your car, would this be
Yes.
accurate the way it was parked? Near this grass over there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And did you retrieve your mail that day?
Actually, no, I never got it out of the box.
Can you tell the court what happened when you got out of your car to get the mail?
Yeah. I saw that Mr. Giada had just pulled out of his gate, and his truck was like beside some landscaping that they have there, and I got out to go get the mail, and we just said hello to each other
And I'm gonna stop you when you said out, so was his truck outside of his gate?
outside of his gates, yeah.
Okay. And you said hello. Did you walk towards Mr. Diata? Where were you standing?
I was heading to the mailboxes right there.
Okay, then what happened?
We just gave neighborly small talk, like I complimented him on his landscaping, that the flowers are looking so nice, and how are you doing? How is your wife? And things like that.
Then what happened?
And when I got out, the dog was nowhere around. And when I was talking with him, I'm looking over this way to him. We're just chit chatting. I don't know what he was doing on the other side of his truck, like on the driver's side, as he was out of it on the driver's side as you pull out. But as we're chatting a little bit, kind of out of nowhere, Nico, the dog, comes from this direction. And
When you
I
say
was
this direction,
off to the left, angling out from their gate.
okay?
And it took me by surprise. I was just like boom, there he is in front of me. And I was like, whoa, hey, Nico. And then he just grabbed my wrist and took me, I started screaming. I know that Mr. Diata called his name, but he didn't leave. And he knocked me to the ground. I know Mr. Diata was running towards me. The dog knocked me on the ground. I tried to get up, and he knocked me down again, this time face down. And
When you say the dog knocked you down two
yes, sir.
times.
Yeah, and when I was face down, I just remember screaming. It felt like lashes in my skin, in my hip, like my body just felt like on fire. And then Mr. Diato, and the next thing I remember was laying on top of me, and like his head was right here. Everything was just like a blur, like, oh, his head's right here. And I'm looking at the dirt. I probably could have reached out and about grabbed the mailbox post. And I don't even know how the dog left, but eventually he was gone. And when Mr. Diato got off of me, I got up and got into my car and shut the door.
And then what happened? It's okay, you can take your time.
When we were still laying on the ground, he said, "I'm sorry, Cinda, I don't know why he did this. I don't know how the dog got back to the
Objection
gate."
here, City Aaron.
Overruled.
You can continue, Cinda.
But when he saw him, my hand was bleeding multiple places.
Which hand?
My left hand.
Okay.
It was bleeding multiple places across here, here on the wrist side, down here. I have a puncture here and scarring here.
When you're pointing to your left wrist on the top and on the bottom side of your wrist?
Yes. When Mr. Diata first saw my wrist, he grabbed it right here. And it was kind of like, grabbed my wrist and then let go. And I dialed 911. I was like this, but worse, shaking. I couldn't breathe. I can't feel my hand. I can't feel my hand. Something's wrong with my hip. My mouth was all dry. I just felt like I was gonna pass out. And I called 911 and I asked to bring an ambulance. And Mr. Diaz said at that point, don't bring an ambulance because I can just take you. So after that, I said, okay, well, I need to go. Let's just go to the emergency room. He was concerned, and I don't know why, but concerned that my car was not off the driveway far enough, because it was off. Anyway, we ended up just.
When you say off the driveway, you mean off the M66?
Yes, like off safely, so like a car in 66 wouldn't hit it, but it was off. So that was weird, but I ended up getting in his truck and he drove me to the emergency room.
Okay, so Mr. Diaz rendered aid to you,
Mhm.
tried to get his dog to stop attacking you.
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, he called his name. And yeah, he
And-
didn't quit, but
And at one point you said Mr. Diaz laid on top of you,
yes, sir.
and then at that point did the dog stop?
Well, I don't think so right away, but eventually I don't really know when it stopped. I just felt like my rear end and hip was being ripped apart.
And so was most of the attack targeted to your left side?
Most is on my left side. I did have on my right inner thigh 3 claw marks. I have some bites on my legs. But most of those are my left side also.
And so some of these bites are on various, on your backside, your hip, buttocks area, is that accurate?
Yes.
And so real quickly, I'm gonna, if you can direct me where on this, so Ms. Davis can shut this area down. Is it your understanding, so obviously it says on this for demonstrative Duggan, is this where I'm holding my hand, is that the property that you know to be the Diatas where they reside?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm gonna move my finger from the road, this being M66, and tell me when to stop, approximately where is the gate?
Maybe somewhere close to there.
Okay, in this area?
Generally, yes.
Okay, so that's inside out, and you have to access the private drive to access their gate, is that accurate?
Yeah.
You can't turn directly off M66 into the Diatas property.
Right. You drive into the common lane and then into each individual's properties.
So all the driveways that you're aware of on this area all have access only from this drive? Or
Yes.
is improved driveways, I should say?
Yeah.
Because the Diatas obviously could come in off of here, but there's no driveway off of M66.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you 2 photographs. That I've marked as proposed, it says people, that should be plaintiff's exhibit 1 and 2. You see those?
Debbie, do you have those to screen share also?
Oh, which one's?
I prefer those not be screen shared over the, once you see them, you'll see
All
why.
right,
Thank you. That's why their papers are on, right?
okay.
I apologize, maybe I should have brought that ahead of time. And are you familiar with this photo?
Yes, sir.
And is that you in the photo?
Yes, it is.
And is that an accurate depiction of what your left buttocks hip looked like at the time of that photograph?
Yeah.
And in fact, this was some time after the attack, is that correct?
Yes, I don't remember the time, the date that one was, but it progressively got more and more bruised. But yeah, that's several days after, probably a few, I don't know how many.
I'd move to admit exhibits 1 and 2.
Mr. Richardson, any questions?
No objection, presented to the court.
No objection.
And in that actual photograph, there's a tape measure that's placed there to kind of show the size of those wounds, correct?
Yes.
And does that area of your body still give you problems?
Yes, it does. In the morning, it's very crampy to get up. There's a lot of like stretching and working out of a tight crampiness. It's also very tender and just super tender over where all those scars and slashes were and the bite marks.
And those left scarring, is that correct?
Yeah, it's still there. Mhm.
And in fact, in the photographs 1 and 2, you can see there's some healing, but a fairly large wound It's approximately 3 inches long. Is that?
Yeah.
And that's still there and that's still visible?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna talk to you. You mentioned your wrist, your left wrist. What happened? So you said that the dog grabbed you and pulled you down initially, correct?
Yeah, first he bit here and I fell backwards first.
And did you fall to the ground?
Yes, I tried to stand to get up and that's when I was just pushed down again, this time face down, the second time.
And that's when the dog continued to bite you?
Yes,
And you said claw at you or scratch at you?
yes,
And at the conclusion, did you have bite and scratch marks kind of various parts all over your lower extremities?
yes, I have them on both of my arms and legs.
And are those scarred?
There still are some scars, some have faded and some are still there.
Tell me about the problems that you've had with your left wrist.
My wrist it hurts every day to different degrees. Sometimes it's, tolerable and sometimes it's like, I feel like I'm gonna lose my mind. My hand is always numb and tingly feeling from about my middle finger over to my thumb, both sides. It's very zingy, just zingy, zappy. I don't want to like touch it in certain spots. Sometimes it feels like there's a knife jabbing into my thumb and my hand and wrist area. Sometimes it radiates up to my shoulder like it is now. It aches. My thumb is sometimes really weak. I don't feel things the same. And I drop things sometimes due to those reasons.
And
Let me stop you for a minute. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
has this had an impact on your day-to-day activities and things that you can do?
Yeah, I can do things, but some things are not the same. It hurts a lot, and there's certain activities where the small, like motor skill kind of things that you would use, the intricate thumb finger thing, it just doesn't always work the same.
So the fine motor skills of your left hand and the thumb finger are not there.
Right.
Have you gone to a doctor or sought medical treatment or help for that?
Yes. First, I went to my chiropractor for something else, and that was near the beginning when everything was still pretty fresh and painful. And he is the one who he took a terry cloth towel and just kind of draped it, and I was like, it hurts so bad. And he said, you need to see someone, and he sent me to a nerve specialist to see.
So you went on to a neurologist or a nerve specialist?
Yeah. Yes.
And did you have any testing or any other type of appointments with the nerve doctor?
Yes, I did a series throughout the summer of multiple appointments of like a therapy for my hand for desensitization, and just different things to sort of try to strengthen, or a whole therapy for that. It didn't really do anything. I was put on Cymbalta at one point that didn't do anything. We switched to gabapentin, a pretty good dose, and the pain didn't go away. It created a whole lot of other awful side effects along with that.
So when you say the pain didn't go away, so the gabapentin didn't take the pain away, but it gave negative side effects.
Right. And now Dr. Schramm says that I could potentially need a surgery. I had nerve testing done also to just see what was going on in there. And that showed that there would be a carpal tunnel surgery sort of thing recommended. And he's not sure that that would even fix the problem. And then there's the two spots over here.
When you say over here, you're pointing to kind of the thumb side of the top of your wrist?
It's where the teeth would have hit me, yeah, kind of here on my wrist, and here where there's scarring. That radiates the nerves on up the tingly part. He said that those nerves would not be fixed by any surgery. The best he could do is like bury them to try to deaden the pain, but there's not really a fix for that.
Okay. And when you see these scars in the mirror, when you see these scars on your hand, when you point to them, does that have an impact on you?
Yeah. My life is not the same.
Tell the court what you mean by that.
There's the whole pain side of it, and there's the trauma side of it. I am a scared, nervous wreck. At first, I was not even able to sit on my deck. We live in the woods. The falling of acorns, everything is like just startles me, whether it's a dog or not. But man, if there's a dog, this is a problem. And I don't want to leave my house sometimes. I mean, I do because I have to. You have to live life. But things that have nothing to do with dogs, just, it terrifies me to almost live. I don't walk in my woods. I don't walk in my yard too much. I mean, a little bit. Everything just feels panicky, like what's gonna get me. That kind of thing.
And have you been seeing a counselor or a therapist to try to work through these issues?
Yes, I have. I saw her for the first time about a week after it happened.
When you say after it happened, so about a week after May the
After
10th?
May 10th, right?
So you weren't seeing that individual before?
No.
Okay.
And I've seen her regularly, like in the beginning, I saw her every week or 2 weeks. And it's not always the same due to scheduling, but I still see her. And it was hard. And when things start hurting, it just flares it all up. It's like, oh, and yeah.
And so would you say that this has affected your mental health
yes,
as well as your physical health?
yeah, and it's embarrassing, you know. I'm a 53-year-old person who should have it all together, but man, this stuff affects you way more than someone would really ever expect. I don't go out that way anymore.
When you say you don't go out that way, what do you mean? Explain.
There is neighbors that curve up the other way, and they have siblings that also live up there. They've cut an area open so they can cross through. So I am allowed to go out on the other people's private driveway for now, anyway, for the time being.
So you now don't even access the driveway through your legally accessed driveway that's up on the screen?
Right, I've driven down there maybe 3 times. The first time was the day after it happened, and I was in a full-blown panic attack by even looking at those mailboxes in that spot, and I drove way too fast down to my house. One time I had a package delivered and my husband was out of town, and I knew that like the notification said they fit in the mailbox, and I knew I had to get it out because it was stuffed, and how would I get, and I just had this awful panicky feeling like, oh no, should I ask the hikers to get my mail again? Or
and so the neighbors have helped you out getting the mail and other
yes,
things?
they have. Yeah.
And are you currently afraid to be outside at your residence?
Yes. I don't venture too far from our house.
And your left wrist, does it have scarring on it now?
Yes.
It's your testimony that you're understanding that there's nothing that they can do about the tingling and the burning sensation that you feel on the top of your left hand?
Right, there's nothing to do more for that, right?
And does that impair your ability, as you said with your fine motor skills with your left hand, that limits your ability to do certain functions?
Yes, sometimes it does. It's not always 100%, but often I can't pick things up quite the same. Or if I do an activity, it really starts hurting and then I just can't finish it or do the same sorts of things I used to before.
And do you still take the gabapentin?
He actually quit because of the awful side effects. The doctor has said I could kind of wait through what I want to do. If it gets bad enough, if the pain is so bad, I can go back on it. It's like I have to choose my bad.
What do you mean by that?
Like, do I choose to not have the bad side effects from the medicine and just work through the pain? Or do I choose to have a little less pain and work through the bad side effects of what that might be doing? So which one do I want to have?
And so this was back in May, so this is 5+ months into
Very
5
close to 5 months.
months,
Yep.
and you're still having these issues,
Yes,
and there's no end in sight from the doctor.
right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't have any more questions for Ms. Miller. I believe that Mr. Richards may have a few questions for you.
Mr. Richardson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Um, So just to pick it up from, it's been 5 months and that you've seen this
Debbie, you can
neurologist.
give me my screen back.
Mr.
Okay.
Richardson asked that I leave it
Okay,
up,
all
so
right, fair enough.
Yeah, actually, we'll start right there. So your testimony is specifically, where did this incident take place? Was it on the road or was it on the green area?
Not on that side, no. So when you say road, do
Was
you
it on
mean,
this white colored, dirt colored road or what?
it would
was it on
be
this?
as the drive, the dirt shared drive curves in and it's green grass. My car was parked there by the curb and the mailboxes are closer to M66, like normal mailboxes. So the whole incident was by the mailboxes.
All right, so this map shows a line through it, which is M66. That's running north and south. Is that correct?
Yes.
The top is north. Is that correct? The top of the picture is to the north. Is that true?
yes.
All right, and so the bottom where you pulled off, the road goes to the right, which would be to the east. So are you saying you were on the south side of the dirt road in the grass area?
Yes, because I was coming from Sturgis, from painting our house, going home. So from south up, curving in to where that curve is, where the grass is.
So you were not in the road
Correct.
and you were not by the mailboxes.
Well, to get the mail, I went to the mailboxes,
But when
but the
this,
car was not parked by the mailboxes, like by that, because I had walked over there.
and so outside of the defendant's gate, is there a driveway that connects to the road?
Well, it's hard to tell with his as far as like driveway, because
Has he created a dirt?
there is a
Drive.
spot where his landscaping is and it goes up to where his gate is. That I guess would be his spot, his driveway over there.
And there's planters outside of his gate, right?
On the one side, there's some landscaping. I don't know if it's both. I haven't driven that way in a while, but there was some landscaping.
And so you said you were talking with the defendant, were you complimenting his landscaping?
Yeah, because in the past, like weeks before that, we noticed that it's looking really nice and there were some flowers there and I thought, well, those are pretty. Turned out they were plastic, but they were still pretty. And that's what we were talking
And
about
so you were close enough to converse with him?
by shouting a little bit. I mean, you and I are close enough. So, I mean,
How many?
yes, but
How many feet away from him were
I
you?
don't even know. I'm bad at feet. But from the mailboxes to where he would pull his truck out.
Was his truck, where was his truck?
Well, as you pull out of the gate, he just stopped it right there. So it was out of his gate, but by his landscaping area.
And you don't know where his property line is, right?
The exact line? No, but I'm assuming it would be where his fence is, but I don't know.
Okay, and so M66 is, we all know, is a busy road. It's very loud, right?
At times, sometimes no.
And so, I mean, you were close enough to have conversation with the defendant, is that fair to say?
At a raised voice, yes.
At a raised voice? Were you on his property?
Not at all.
How do you know?
Because his property is not in the dirt shared lane for the mailboxes.
Did you walk up his driveway?
No, sir, I did not. I did not even go on the other side of the dirt, except when I got into his truck to go to the emergency room.
Have you ever noticed a small metal stake with a reflector on it outside of his property?
Not really. I mean, he has lights that light up on his fence as you drive by.
And so, just to be clear, you're his neighbor, right? But you kind of live like 6 or 7 acres away.
We are a few properties down.
These are big properties. This isn't like living in the city. You live quite a distance away, right?
We live a few properties down. I don't know the
Multiple
acreage.
acre properties. You're not,
Right.
you're not
But the-
right 50
right.
feet next. You're not his like.
We are not his
door
next door neighbor.
Okay. You testified you stepped out to get your mail, but you never got your mail?
I never got the mail because the dog attacked me and I was on the ground. So I never actually.
How
pulled
far are
out.
the mail, I mean, the mailboxes are a good amount of distance from his gate, correct?
Yes, and I wasn't by his gate.
So do you ever get your mail just out of the car? Just stop with your car and lean out and get your mail?
I never do because I don't want to scratch the car.
Where'd you park the car?
Objection, asked and answered.
Well, let's see if she can answer it again.
As you come south out of Sturgis and you curve into the shared dirt lane on the side that's closest to the grass there, that is where I pulled in and stopped.
Was it blocking the lane?
No, because it wides out to both. And in that spot, it's wider and it wasn't blocking any of it.
So your testimony is the truck was outside of the gate or still within the gate?
Outside of his gate.
Okay. And the defendant, what was he doing when you were talking to him?
He was on the other side of his truck, like on the driver's side, so I couldn't really see what he was doing.
You know, was it where he was going?
No,
But you were engaged in a conversation with him and close enough to his truck.
in shouting distance. I mean, I didn't see what he was doing on the other side of his truck,
And the truck's in the driveway just outside the gate.
outside of his gate, yes.
And did he say anything to you?
We said hello. I complimented him on his landscaping. I said, how's your wife? How you doing? That kind of thing.
Was he going to work?
And he said he was when we went to the hospital, but at that time I would have no idea where he's going.
Did he invite you on his property?
No, he did not.
Was he in a rush?
I don't know.
Are there any no trespassing signs on his property?
There are signs, but I didn't go on his property.
So you're aware there are signs on his property that say no trespassing?
There are signs, yes.
Is there a beware of dog sign on his property?
Probably, I think on the well, signs, probably one says that.
So you're aware there's a beware of dog sign on his property?
Yes,
Did you testified you initially parked on the south side of that road, but at some point, did you ever move the vehicle, get back in it, park it in another spot and get out and then go talk to him?
I never did.
So you just parked it one time where you testified you parked?
Yes.
Was you, after this, I guess, when you were talking to the defendant, did you see the dog at all?
No,
So the dog was on his property?
I didn't see him anywhere. I assume he was. He came
Do
from
you-
that angle. But
Do you
I
know where
didn't-
the dog came from?
He came from the angle of the gate. That's all I know. Because when he attacked me, I didn't see him from a distance coming.
So he came from the defendant's property.
Objection,
The
asked
dog.
and answered.
She said she didn't know, but it came from that direction. But it is cross-examination. You can ask leading questions.
That's fine, you can ask the question, but he answered that question, she answered, I don't know.
I don't know. So the answer is the same answer. I don't know. But it came from the direction of his property. Is that safe?
Yes.
And so your testimony today is that you've been to the neurologist for your left wrist, is that correct?
Yes,
And it's been 5 months?
approximately on the 10th.
Okay, and has the neurologist, to your knowledge, has he indicated it's possible it could heal over time?
He said nerves are tricky and there's no way to really know that for sure. Some things last forever.
But it's possible they could heal over time, correct?
Objection, asked and answered,
Well, it's cross.
but he asked the same question, and then just re-asked the same question.
All right. Well, the
Just
answer.
because he doesn't like the answer doesn't mean he gets to keep asking.
Can you move your hand right now?
Yeah, I can move it.
Okay. You can flex your fingers, you could pick up a pen.
Sometimes picking up the pen is not good. I drop things, the little things like that. It's not always the same.
Have you had any tests done on your wrist?
Yes, I had a series of nerve testing. I had therapy testing.
What type of tests?
I don't know what they're called, but the
Have-
nerve, what,
What type of tests have you?
for the therapy that I did first, there was a series of things like pull this, push that, squeeze this, that kind of thing, motion, strength, that. And then I had a nerve testing done at a different place where they hook up these things and they do these little zaps and it shows if you feel or you don't feel I guess how your nerves react.
And what's your understanding of the results of that test?
That some of them were like more along the dead side. I don't know if that's the word they use, but those two were the ones that were like, the lady who did it said, well, this is the carpal tunnel one. I'm gonna recommend the carpal tunnel surgery, and these two over here, yeah, those were just, there's nothing we can do. So they didn't, the nerve testing person, that's all she told me.
Did you receive a diagnosis?
There's one submitted somewhere or in the official words, I don't know, but I'm just saying that's what the doctor had told me.
So do you know if you have a diagnosis of a permanent injury?
I don't know what he's diagnosed as far as that. He's diagnosed what I mentioned before about the carpal tunnel surgery and the possibility that it might not help.
So you don't know that you have a diagnosis of a permanent injury, correct?
I guess if it's not written, I don't know.
Have you had any anxiety issues before this attack?
Not really, no.
Cymbalta, you said was taken for anxiety?
No, it was for pain. He was trying that for nerve pain because I asked for a medicine that wouldn't make me quite as tired. So that's what he tried first.
Are you given any pain medication other than gabapentin and Cymbalta?
In the beginning, I took a lot of ibuprofen, but then when I went to the nerve doctor, he basically said that's not going to help this nerve pain. And that's when he switched it to the nerve specific medicines.
Have you ever taken an electromyograph test?
I don't know what that is. I don't know what my test was called.
Okay. So as we sit here, you can't indicate or represent to us or to the court that you have a diagnosis of a permanent injury. Is that correct?
We have papers, and if you check with that doctor, but to know the specific name of a diagnosis, I don't know.
You testified your left hand is where these scratches were, right?
The bites were and scratches on the left side, yes.
On the left side, they're on your wrist, on your hand?
Both,
Can you hold it up right now?
yeah. Some have faded and some are still there, like this one's still there. This one is still there. These were here, they're less now, these are very faded now too. The ones that were across here are gone.
But they're faded. And essentially, from this distance, I can't see a scar at this point or
Objection.
disfigurement.
Who cares what he can see? from that
Well,
distance?
he can ask the question.
But I guess I'd object. How does she know what he can see from that distance?
Well, true, fair enough. But
So if you don't mind, just hold up your left hand for the court so the court can see it. No further questions on this time.
sorry,
Real brief on follow-up. Well, you indicated you don't know the exact written diagnosis. Is it your understanding that you have a permanent nerve issue in your left hand as a result of this attack?
Yes, and when the doctor would say something to his assistant, he would say, she has blah, 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 blah,
Objection
blah.
here, sir.
And I don't know what those are called.
So, but your
oh, just a
understanding is it's
minute,
permanent.
just a minute. I'll allow the answer. It doesn't signify anything of great importance. But
But I'm sorry, Your Honor.
it's interesting because he asked her a bunch of questions about what her doctor said. And then you asked it, and then he objected as hearsay, but
Well, I think he opened the door to clarify based on his cross-examination, so.
I'll allow the answer.
And I'm clarifying the fact that she doesn't know the terminology, but your understanding from what they told you, it's a permanent injury to the nerve in your left hand.
Correct.
And you've already testified that it is causing you ongoing issues to where you can't grip, you drop things, and it's causing problems.
Yes, and even though it looked fine, it's not fine.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I have no other questions.
You can step down, thank you. I didn't comment, but exhibit 1 and 2 are admitted into the record.
We have no other witnesses, Your Honor. Actually, I think, yeah, I have no other witnesses.
All right. Neither do the prosecution, Ms. Davis.
No, Your Honor, we have no further.
All right. Mr. Richardson, do you wish to call any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Call the defendant to the stand. He's following me up this way.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give here will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief.
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
Your Honor, I have some exhibits here that are photographs. I don't know what the best way to display those are.
Well, you can screen share them. Deborah's gonna have to.
We should be able to get those.
Log in, or just want to email it to me, I can put it up, or you can log in.
I can log into Zoom.
Yeah, just log in. Zoom.
Say, I wish I could print it.
Oh, that's kind of a more.
This is a,
It's just a print it out.
It's just a printer, kind of what you're looking at, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's fine.
it's a survey. that we get.
It's not a survey.
Yeah, it's definitely.
That's not a survey.
I'll show you.
It's us.
It's a sketch.
I mean-
I'm just telling you what it does.
Yeah, okay.
You can,
It's a-
you can.
I mean, I guess if the purpose of it is just to show the area, but if he's gonna try to argue feet and inches based on that, I would have an issue calling that a survey.
Well, I am doing my due diligence in showing you what my.
And I'm doing our due diligence and telling you what the objection is gonna be.
Yeah. Your Honor, I think I'm gonna try to log on to Zoom so I can display these. If that works.
Mine always does decide to update when I try to log on to Zoom.
Yes, maybe we'll get an emergency alert.
Judge, what is the Zoom ID off the top of your head?
646 904 905 4321.
I used to know.
I don't know what that is.
I'll just send you an email invite and you can just click onto that and join our Zoom.
I just automatically populates with things right away, so I don't.
Yes, I used to have to do it every morning until
I think it starts with a 901.
it's 9. Anyway, I used to do it every day. Anyway, I just sent you an email invitation. If you click on that, you should be able to join. 905-646-3210. I can remember my childhood telephone number.
That's important.
I can't remember I can barely remember my own current cell phone number. If I ever lose my cell phone, heaven forbid, I won't be able to call anyone. There you go.
Yeah, you hit the share my screen.
Yes. So you're
Yeah,
gonna,
turn your mic off.
so turn off your your sound, like your speakers. You shouldn't have feedback.
Where's the share my screen?
Should be share screen.
Oh, right in front.
When I was trying cases, an overhead projector was big technology.
Elmo.
The Elmo or the email, whatever they call it.
I had one and I really liked it. But before that, we just used the overhead projector and we'd make transparencies of things, maps and that sort of thing, so we could project it. We had a big, clunky, heavy, hot overhead projector that could show photographs and that sort of thing, but there was at one time a pull-down screen on that wall where that dumb blackboard is, but about once in a blue moon, we still use that blackboard. There we go.
All right. Your Honor, did he state his name for the record? Is he sworn?
He was sworn. I'm not sure if we had him state his name yet, so why don't you go through that?
You state your name for the record.
Dr. Douglas Diata.
Mr. Diata, I'm going to start from the beginning. You're the defendant in this case, correct?
Correct.
And you've heard the testimony of the alleged dog bite, correct?
Correct.
And testimony.
Just a minute. Laura, something's going on. His microphone's not queuing, Dr. Diaz. There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Diatta, I'm going to take you back to the day in question of this alleged incident back on May 10th, 2023. Can you tell the court what happened that day?
Yes. It was going through a normal day and routine in which I was exiting my property. I was rushing to get some gas, and so I was heading to work. So I was dressed as I am now. Normally, upon exiting, I'll pull up to my gate, and this is essentially what I'm looking at is the mailbox, which you see that's right in front of that red pickup truck. Those are the mailboxes, and the garbage cans of the neighbors are sitting right next to the mailbox. So as I pull out, I have to fold both my gates out, and that's when I encountered Ms. Miller. So normally I'll walk one gate out on the left, and I'll walk the other gate out based on how they're locked. I do them in a certain order. So upon opening the first left gate, I see Ms. Miller. And upon that, she, waves and, hey, I love your flowers. They're great. Are those really plastic? Because they are plastic. And so I was like, yeah, the wife did a great job. She did great. She was like, oh yeah, those are beautiful. So then at which time I finished opening my gate. Now, during this time, my dog is at the corner of the property in the gate looking, as he does when anybody gets their mail or anything. So my dog is looking directly at her, and both gates are open at this time, okay? My dog hasn't moved, he is at the gate. Ms. Miller proceeds to look for her mail, and I return back to my vehicle so I can exit. The dog is trained just to stay in that corner and watch me leave. He hadn't moved, he hadn't done anything. Ms. Miller was right at the mailbox. My dog was still there in the corner, had not moved, had not done anything. So as normal procedure, gates were opened. I pulled my vehicle. I was walking back to my vehicle to pull my vehicle out, at which time I see, can I approach the picture to show you where the approach came here? Or
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So as I open my gates, my normal thing is I just go back to the vehicle and as he showed other pictures, I have a 2500 Silverado. So once I'm on one side, I have no visibility. And we do have pictures. And I think Ms. Miller also reiterated, once I went back to my car, there is no visibility.
With the witness.
Well, that's fine.
So, Mr. Diatta, just show us on this photo where the incident happened.
So as Ms. Miller pulled her vehicle up here to get her mail, at which time she retrieved her mail, we responded with our pleasantries, and I walked back to my vehicle to pull out of my gates. Ms. Miller then pulled her vehicle up here and parked her vehicle right here and got out and said, hey, Doug, I want to ask you a question. At this time, she was walking towards the planter that we can show in this. There's one on this side and there's one on this side of the driveway here. At this time, she got out and she had her keys in her hand and she said, hey, let me ask you about the flowers. Upon her entering and crossing into our driveway is when and you can see our black privacy fence from the screen sitting right here. So this is the open gate with a pole going into the ground. Upon her coming in, I used a survey device to measure the distance from where she parked her vehicle into my driveway, and it's less than 20 feet. It is exactly 84.75 feet, exactly that's on that survey from M66 right here to my driveway. So upon erecting all of my fences, I made a 10-foot gap so I could drive my skid steer.
Objection, can we have an actual question as opposed to narrative
Yeah.
response? This is
Okay,
not a
so
response.
Mr. Diatta, where was she when the incident happened?
So she was approximately right about here. My gates are open. Upon her parking and coming across the street waving her keys is when my dog came out of the corner of the property and then encountered Mrs. Miller.
The dog's still on your property at this point.
The dog is still on my property upon her entering directly, and her car is here. And how we know is I moved that vehicle later, but she comes right onto the property at which she encounters my dog. At which time she then backs up once he encountered her.
What's that metal spike right there with the little red?
This is a reflector we use to identify our property line.
So that was placed after, how do you know it's your property line?
Well, initially when We have 5 acres that we have, the complete 5 acres fenced in with 6 foot.
Objection, non-responsive. Yes, how
Yes.
we knew where this property line.
How do you know that that's your property line?
We had it surveyed by Moskowitz and Sons. We did a complete survey of the product, and we have metal insertions into the ground to identify where each corner of our property is.
And you put that spike where the metal insertion is?
On this picture, it does not show that because it's actually at the corner, right up again, closer to M66. So we have 84.75 feet to this point in the middle of our driveway. And then the gate at this time is probably 10 feet back from this point. So we have.
Objection is still non-responsive. The question
Yeah.
was, is that reflector the point? That was the question. Is there a statement?
Yes, Dr. Diata,
Yes.
you're in the chiropractic field, we're in the legal field.
Yeah.
You're on direct examination by your lawyer, and as a rule, you can't just take off on a narrative. You have to respond to the questions that are asked, and if you continue to do that, he'll continue to object. So try to just answer the questions that are asked, because when you do that, they can't anticipate what you're gonna say
Yes, Your Honor.
and be prepared. So just try to answer the questions.
Yes.
So Dr. Diata, just to clarify, just point on the screen where the incident, where the victim was when the incident happened.
Right here.
Okay. You can grab a seat.
And you're pointing to somewhere,
In my driveway.
yes, which would be
And that is
to the bottom or just to the right of the,
Lateral to that spot of grass, that patch of grass you see
where the reflective marker is.
is behind that, parallel to that patch of grass essentially.
All right.
Because you can see my black privacy fence at the very corner. That's me opening up the fence. That's looking at it from the rear. Okay, so she actually, once she got to the corner where my fences are, that's when the encounter happened. And you can have a better look at the planter. That was the planter that she was walking to.
So, Mr. Diata, I have another photo up here, and it's proposed exhibit 2. Tell us what this is.
This is what it would look like after I exited my gates.
Just
when
a
I was-
minute. Let's call your exhibits by numbers. We've already got a 1 and 2. Let's call yours A and B.
Proposed exhibit, defendant's proposed exhibit B, and you took this photo?
Correct,
It's a fair and accurate representation of your driveway.
correct.
And so your truck is parked, explain to us.
Normally, so this would be when I would close my gates. So I would pull out so I can close both of the gates and then I would leave. And those gates, yeah,
Let me stop you. Do your gates swing in or
Out.
out?
they swing out.
All right, so you have to pull up to your gate, get out of your car, your truck, open the gates
Correct.
one at a time, pull through them, get out of your truck, go back and close and lock the gate.
Correct.
All right.
And so, Mr. Diata, this is defense proposed exhibit C. Did you take this photo?
Yes,
It's a fair and accurate representation of your gates and driveway.
yes.
And just describe this for the court.
This would be the driveway. I would normally pull up to here, close to the gates, open both of my gates. To the right, I have 3 apple trees in the very corner, which would be approximately 80 feet away. That is where the dog is, which is almost directly across from the mailboxes.
Okay, and so during this incident, the dog never left your property? Is that correct?
No, even with the gates like this, the dog is still in the corner of the property.
And now describe what happened when Ms. Miller approached and the dog bite happened.
So initially, in this position, once I returned to my car is when I realized that Ms. Miller had then parked. Essentially, if you're looking at that picture, she's slightly to the right of that right gate. But there's privacy fence, but you can't see through it. So my dog is looking directly at her. So as soon as I get back into my truck, I see Miss Miller park. And I'm like, I'm kind of like, what is she doing? She gets out of her vehicle and she's waving at me, trying to get my attention. At which time my dog started to come out of the corner of the gate. Upon her entering the driveway space is when she encountered my dog. And at that time, I jumped out of my vehicle and I chased behind my dog. I jumped on top of Miss Miller and my dog, okay, to stop the attack. This was only 3 to 4 seconds. This wasn't like he had time to do the multiple interactions. That is completely inaccurate. Once he bit Miss Miller on her hand, she fell backwards and I jumped on top of both of them. And at that time, I took my dog back to the gate and was able to pull my car out and secure the gate, and the dog never came back out of the gate.
And so at no time was your dog unaccompanied by you?
Never. My dog is always inside the gate and he doesn't come out even when I leave unless perceived threat.
And so you mentioned the dog is trained.
Correct.
So the dog will stay in the corner of the yard? Is that correct?
He'll stay in that corner and he'll watch me leave. And upon me leaving, I'll see his head, sitting there if he's out and that. So anyone who goes to their mailbox has looked at that dog for the last 2 years. Okay,
And so-
because he hangs his head over that and kind of peers at everybody, but he knows all the neighbors. So even that day, he was looking directly at Miss Miller. For her to say she didn't see him is virtually impossible.
And so Miss Miller was approaching
Objection calls
you.
for speculation on the last, would ask to strike.
No, it is what it is. It's his version of things, certainly not hers.
It's interesting.
And so Miss Miller was approaching you in your driveway,
Correct.
and that is when your dog responded?
Yes,
And you said she was waving her keys?
correct.
What else was she doing?
She was just waving her hand saying, hey, trying to get my attention, because once I get in my truck, I wasn't looking. I was gear shifting, pulling out, and then I hear her calling. That's what time I see the dog come because she's now in the driveway and he is now alerted to her coming to the driveway.
And what kind of signs do you have on the outside of your fence?
I have a white no trespassing and a black and red beware of dog directly on the front fence. I have a no trespassing beware of dog right at the corner where he hangs his head, and I have them along all sides of my property.
Is there anything else you want the court to know?
As far as the security of the property, I have installed electric fence throughout the entirety of the property.
That's kind of a question. It's like, what else you want the court to know?
Yeah,
If he has a question, ask a question.
Well, and it doesn't go to the fact of what he did after the fact. Doesn't go to the dog bite case, but it's a petition to destroy the dog. So he wants to ask him, what have you done to secure the property?
And that question I would not object to.
And
All right,
what if any efforts have you done to secure the property?
Initially, what I did after the dog, we had our spring floods and it comes down my hill and it washes out holes under my hill, under the gate, which it did. So what I did was I have a Kubota skid steer. I cut down no less than, well, we had 30 to 50 trees down. I cut them into 20 to 15 foot sections and I logged the entire 5 acres on the inside. And in the front property where you're looking, I have logs along the entire front of the property, inside and outside of the fence. These are several 100-pound logs. Then what I additionally did, I got invisible fence and I put invisible fence around the outside of all these logs. So he can't even dig at the logs. There's an electric fence right there. Additionally, what I did behind the logs was I got steel rebar. I'm talking 5 acres of steel rebar that you cut and stick into the ground so the gate can never move again. And that is sandwiched between 2 logs and an invisible fence. So it took me days. So even with the incidents before, I was working day and night to secure the bottom and the top, and then spent, we have the receipt for the invisible fence for the entire property. And now he never even goes near it.
And I guess, just to be clear, you've never invited Miss Miller on your property?
I have never invited Ms. Miller onto my property. I've never invited her over. She has never been onto my property, invited her otherwise.
I'm gonna hand you a document that's Defense Proposed Exhibit D. So shown to the prosecutor. Attorney Reed, can you tell me what that is?
This is a
Yes, certainly. Go ahead.
So can you tell me what that is?
This is a printout of the copy of the survey done by Mospins and Son.
And it was sent to you?
Yes,
It's a fair and accurate representation of the survey you paid for?
yes,
And from this survey, is that how you figured out where to put your gate?
yes,
And you left some space in between your gate and the road?
correct. Based on the survey, in order for me to do any repairs or move my skid steer in between, so I'm not on the street, grooving it up with my tracks or anything, I left a 10-foot cushion all around any area that I would have to drive. Additionally, Luke and Amanda, my neighbors directly to my left, have a chicken coop, and they had it pretty much right on the property line. So, and matter of fact, they had to move it over once we got the survey, because once they put all the stakes and everything in, then we were able to get an accurate idea of what the property line is between. So he actually had to move that chicken coop over in order for us to then put in our fence. So we put our fences based directly on what the survey down to the inch. Now, there's areas in the front that are so heavily wooded and are on a hilly gradient that it wasn't feasible to put a fence. I have approximately, some areas have 200 feet, some areas have 100 feet, but there's along that same road, I have, probably 100 to 200 feet of property where I don't fence because of terrain, but it is still my property.
So you're confident that this incident happened on your property because you got a survey?
Correct.
No further questions.
Can you leave that picture up just for a second? Good afternoon, Dr. Diata.
Yeah.
So Mr. Richardson asked you a question. I'm going to approach this and point. I believe he was pointing to this, and you indicated that that is your property line.
That is a
stake that you put in.
Yeah, that's a reflective stake. So we knew where we were doing street beautification. And so I wanted to know where my landscaping and all that is. So I put that in parallel to the markers that are staked.
So there's not an actual rebar or buried stake for Mostrom and Associates here, correct?
There is not a no, because our property line is on the corner.
So what you did was actually try to measure it based on where you found the stake up here, correct?
I did measure it.
Okay. But that's what I'm saying. So you drew the line to there and put it there and assume that's where the property line is. You did not have Mostrom stake the opening of your fence as to where your property line is, correct?
They staked the entire line of that property.
But is there a stake here?
That's not how they, well, once again, I couldn't tell you if there was or not, because on there's circles actually indicating where they put them, so that would tell you.
Okay, but my point is, you don't know if there's a stake there or not.
If he shows me the survey, I would be able to tell you because there'd be a circle there.
is that indicated on the document that you provided?
I have two actual copies on my phone that I can get up there.
So the answer is you don't know if there's a stake underneath this.
I don't know if there's a stake. I know that's our property line.
Thank you. So also too, you indicated that you have signs on your fence indicating beware of dog,
Correct.
because you have a dangerous dog, correct?
I have a dog.
Well, why would you put beware of dog if your dog, you didn't have
Objection,
concern?
Your Honor.
He can ask
I
a
can ask it.
question.
We want to make all the neighbors aware that there's a dog.
But beware of dog. So, but you knew your dog had gotten off the property in the past, correct?
I was aware that he had gotten out.
And you were aware that it attacked the neighbor's dog on their property, correct?
Absolutely not. We were never seeing anything but one picture that showed a nail mark. So attack, no.
They told you though that that's what happened, correct?
I was at work. They said it when my wife came. She said the wife, Mika was at the door. This was never substantiated by us. We never talked to a police officer. And the only picture she showed us was of a scratch. And I do have that picture. There was no puncture. And the 3 wounds that she said, we have never seen them. She never said 3 wounds when she talked to us. She says her dog has a scratch mark and it has a little blood on the back of its butt. And that's all she told me.
But they
And
told
she sent me a
you,
picture.
but they told you that your dog attacked their dog, correct?
She said that our dog chased her dog and she heard her dog yelp. That's what she said.
Okay, but then sent you pictures of bloody dog and what you call
She did not
scratch.
send me a picture of a bloody dog. I have the picture.
She sent you pictures of what she said
She
were
sent me
wounds.
one picture.
Stop,
Pictures
you
is
both
plural.
can't talk at once, so please wait until he finishes the question.
All
And
right.
please wait till he finishes
Yes,
the
sir.
You
answer.
were told about the attack, correct?
She didn't tell me about attack. She said my dog chased her dog and she heard her dog yelp.
But she told you, okay, I'll take your version. Let's go from there. So she told you that your dog was on her property chasing her dog and her dog was yelping.
She did not say that. Okay, I actually have a text message. She said the dog came from she said the dog was on their side of the gate. I told her I was at work. My wife called Miko and he came in the gate. That's all I heard of the situation.
But you just testified before that they said that the dog chased their dog and their dog yelped.
That is what she said.
That's what I asked you.
Okay, that's what she said.
And that's what I asked you.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
So they told you that, correct?
She said that.
To you.
Yes,
That's so you were on notice that the neighbors told you and believed that your dog was on their property.
yes, we never
Okay.
verified anything they said.
So you didn't take any steps to verify or confirm whether or not your dog actually escaped your property and attacked their dog.
Yes, I called my wife. I said, "Where's Miko?" She said he's at the front gate, and she let him. She said somehow he had gotten out. Okay, the night before, I had stayed up 3 a.m. logging those whole areas. I sent Luke a text. I said, "Luke, hey, I stayed up to 3 a.m. logging that whole area. If you see any additional gaps, please let me know so I can fill them." I have that text message right there.
Okay. And did you also hear Pastor Eicher talk today about the dog when he was out getting his trash down by the road? Did you hear that?
Yes, I have a text message from Luke in which Luke said, "Your dog is out and he's chasing me around my garbage."
That wasn't the question. I'm asking you a yes or no. So just answer the question and not give me a narrated
Please,
answer.
the question again.
Did Mr. Eicher let you know or text you about the dog being out when he was taking his garbage out?
Yes,
And he told you your dog is out.
yes,
And did you find your dog being outside of the gate?
yes,
And on the day in question, your dog attacked Cindy Miller, correct?
my dog defended the property.
By attacking Cindy Miller.
My dog defended the
Well,
property.
earlier in your testimony, you said when the dog attacked her, you used the word yourself. So whether your dog defended your property or not, the question is, did it cause a serious injury to her?
The dog did bite Mrs. Miller.
All right.
And repeatedly, correct?
No, that is not correct.
May I see 1 and 2, Your Honor? I'm going to show you what's been admitted as exhibits 1 and 2.
there any medical report with this?
I'm asking the
It's
question.
not you to ask a
Okay.
question. You just answered. the
Yes, sir.
question.
Do you see those?
Where is this? Okay, so this is a hip. Okay, yes, I do see it.
Your testimony today, your dog did not do that.
My testimony is that that is not a bite.
Okay. My question to you is, did your dog do that?
I do not know. Mrs. Miller had on pants. She had on jeans at the time. So
Which means
there were no visible leg injuries at that time. And she had no problem walking, or
Okay.
she had no limp or.
Stop.
I didn't ask you that.
Stop. This is even worse. On direct examination, your lawyer will ask you some questions and there's some latitude. This is cross-examination. So you're only to answer even more specifically the questions that are asked. So you get going and it's hard to reel it in.
So you don't know if your dog did that or not, is your testimony?
I'm not sure how they happened. I did land on top of Mrs. Miller while we were on rocks.
Now, she was face down, correct?
No,
So she had on pants and didn't have a problem walking. In your testimony, as you believe rocks did that to her leg?
if you see where the mailboxes are.
That's not my question. I'm asking you a direct question. Is your testimony that rocks did that to her leg?
I believe the impact from myself on top of Miss Miller as I knocked my dog away, that literally I landed on top of her and we scooted along the rocks because I had scratches all along my legs also. So in the process of me trying to get on top of
Once again, I asked you, is it your testimony that you believe rocks did what you see in exhibits 1 and 2?
I believe that the
Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. I don't
I
want
do
your
believe
rationale.
the long laceration was caused by the rocks or a scratch.
And the puncture wounds?
I would like to see those again. I would say that the depth of all of these wounds are identical.
Okay.
I would say
But
the
that wasn't the
depth.
question.
Okay, what was the question? No, I would say the depth is identical.
So
That's not a puncture.
so that's not from your dog.
They are all the same depth.
You took her to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
Because of injuries and an attack that your dog perpetrated on her, correct?
Because she had an injury, I took her to emergency.
And when you got to the emergency room, you lied to the ER about what type of dog you had, correct?
No, I did not.
You told them, in fact, that it was a German Shepherd, and you did not identify your dog as an Akita, correct?
That is not correct.
That's not correct.
That is not correct.
So the ER so any paperwork that indicated that would be false?
Any would be a mistake. I said he was a mixed dog that we bought. Okay, so he's a Akita mix.
So
That's
what's
what
the
I
other,
told her.
so what other mix is it?
It's either a Husky or a German Shepherd, one of the two. He's a Akita mix.
But you didn't say Akita mix.
I told her it was a Akita mix at the end, at admissions.
And you told Deputy Merck that the attack occurred outside the fence, correct?
I told her she retreated outside the fence. I told her she retreated outside of our driveway. I told Deputy Merck she retreated from my driveway upon encountering Miko.
And so do you believe that that is a justifiable response to somebody wanting to talk to you about flowers?
I believe my dog was absolutely provoked by her entering our property.
And so you have no intention of doing anything different about the training of your dog, correct?
I installed an electrical barrier.
That wasn't the
So
question.
that he could never exit.
That wasn't
in.
the question.
What was the question?
Training your dog. I didn't
Oh,
ask.
absolutely. He's been going through constant training
Where's he been going through training?
at my property. So
With
he's
who?
been going through constant obedience training, shop collar training, sitting, heeling, everything. So I've been putting him through the rigors so that in addition to that.
So you've never taken it for formal training?
No,
Do you live at this property?
yes,
Full time?
yes,
100% you live there?
100%.
And you don't have a house there though?
We are currently building. We're 6 weeks from our build to start.
So you've not built a house there?
We are in an RV so we can supervise our build.
And you've been living in that RV for how long?
We have to manage the practice, so, you know, I have to go back and forth.
Again, that wasn't the question. The
What's the
question is how long
How
if you-
long?
had you lived at the property?
We've been there full time for at least the last 3 months,
Where'd you-
at
where'd you
least
live
2-3 months, you know.
Where were you living before that?
We have a loft above my office, and both of my daughters used to be in Kalamazoo. They're currently in Rochester, so we had 3 locations as we transitioned onto the property.
What do you mean Rochester, New York or Rochester,
Rochester,
Michigan?
Michigan. Both the daughters moved to Rochester and Auburn Hills, Michigan. And
Okay.
at that time, we transitioned full time to the property.
And so you own your loft that you were living in, or were you
It was
renting?
a complete rental.
Okay, so you rent that space?
Yes, I rent that space.
And is that why, I guess, where did the dog live when you weren't at the property?
He was at the loft, so we have plenty of space in the office space, and we have a brownstone loft. So
So the dog the dog lived in the loft with you?
if depending on my schedule, or if my wife was working, so if my wife was there, he would be on the property with my wife. So at the time, you know, my wife does home care, so if she's home, she's there. If she's coming into the office and doing billing those 2 days, he's with us.
Yeah, okay, so I think when you were living at the loft, if both of you were at the loft, the dog was at the loft.
Correct.
If one of you was at the camper.
Then if I was working, she was there, then he was there with her.
Okay. And so I just want to be clear because I'm a little confused by what you call provoke. She didn't torment your dog, is that correct?
She did not torment my dog.
And you believe she willfully provoked your dog?
I do not believe she provoked him purposely.
And she waved at you and was talking to you about flowers,
She came across the street rattling her keys. That's what she did.
but waving at you.
She was calling my name, so yes.
Okay. And she was not aggressive to you.
I don't know, because as she was coming, I was in my car. So when I heard her say my name and she was waving her arm.
Okay. But the previous interaction that you just had with her, you said was pleasantries about the flowers. And she said to you, I like the flowers. And you said, yeah, the missus
Did
did
great.
good. Yeah.
But I was rushing to leave, so I went back to my car and started to leave.
Again, but that was not a confrontational or an aggressive conversation with Miss Miller, correct?
No,
It was friendly,
correct,
neighborly.
correct.
So there's nothing to believe that her second interaction with you, as you testified, was anything but neighborly and friendly, correct?
Correct.
And all of your no trespass signs are on the fence, to the inside of the fence, and there's no line demarcating your property other than maybe some landscaping, which appears to maybe be outside of the property line, correct?
There is, what's the question?
So do you have any signs that are not on the fence that say don't enter, no trespass, anything that's beyond? I know you had the fence.
Yeah, we actually have them on trees that so certain trees that are outside that are obstruct my fence line, I'll hang them on trees.
Here?
They would be right there to the left,
Okay, so that side.
Yeah.
But Ms. Miller
Drive past it every day.
testified, that wasn't the question, strike the last, please.
Yes,
So on this date, even if we take your version of the facts, Miss Miller was waving at you, had neighborly conversation, complimenting you on the flowers, correct?
Correct.
Your dog took her to the ground. You had to lay on top of her and the dog, is your testimony, correct?
No, the dog bit her on her wrist and she fell down.
Okay, and so all the other puncture wounds that she testified to and the injuries that she has testified to were not occurred by your dog?
Once again, I was on top of Miss Miller.
Once again,
as she
the
said.
question is, did they occur from your dog?
I never witnessed any of those.
But you witnessed your dog attack Miss Miller.
I witnessed my dog bite her on her wrist. I did see that.
And you apologized afterwards, correct?
Yes, I did.
And so you're not disputing that that occurred.
No, I am not disputing.
And your testimony today as part of your property doesn't even have fence on it, correct?
No, oh, yes, correct.
And when you were in court last time, you told the judge your entire property was fenced. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And so that would have just been an oversight in your statement to the judge?
Objection.
well, in
Objection.
What's the objection?
It's calling for, I guess it's an out of this hearing statement.
Well, it's a contemptible statement, I guess.
Well, I don't know about contemptible. It's the day's not gonna get carried on this. Most of this argument would go to the dog being at large. The fact that the dog bit a person.
So I'll go with, that's fine. He acknowledged that the fence is not there.
I'm not.
And so-
Now it's the fence from where, so.
You said that there's part of your, due to topography, that the terrain that you don't have fence on part of your property.
Yes, but it's
Okay.
not.
That was a question. Okay. And so your testimony is you did not tell Deputy Merck that the attack occurred outside the fence.
I told him.
I'm not asking what you
I
told
did not
him.
tell him that, no.
Didn't tell him that what happened outside the fence?
Ask the question one more time, please.
Did you tell Deputy Merck that the attack occurred outside of the fence?
I told him that he bit her.
That's a yes or no question.
The question, did I tell him it happened outside the fence?
Yes, that's a question.
I told him she was bit outside the fence, yes.
Okay. And you're testifying today that it happened inside the fence?
No, I'm saying that's what provoked him to come after her, is when she entered the driveway.
So the attack occurred outside the fence?
Correct. He chased her out of the driveway.
So the attack occurred not on your property?
No, they occurred right on my property, and she retreated off of my property.
Hold on one second, stop.
All right?
You don't know if that's the fence, the line or not, but the attack occurred somewhere here according to your testimony, correct?
According to my testimony, I said the attack
Yes or no?
occurred inside of there.
That's what I just said.
Okay, you
So-
said there. I said
So your
inside.
argument is that it's on your property, but
That
it's
it
out,
occurred.
but outside the fence.
Correct.
All right.
But there's no property markers, lines anywhere here, correct? Other than up here?
Correct.
Okay. And so she's retreating off of the property, and I'm not saying your version is even anywhere close to being accurate, but I'm gonna state that taking your version of events and that the dog was protecting the property, you believe it's reasonable for the dog to continue an attack if somebody's retreating off of the property?
I think.
Is it yes or no?
Objection. He's asking for the mental state of a dog.
No, that's not what I asked. If Mr. Richardson had listened to the question.
Well,
The question is, does he believe it's reasonable for the dog to attack somebody, to protect the property if somebody's retreating off of the property?
reasonable for who?
The statute talks of reasonableness, responsive and animal reasonableness.
I don't know where that is.
His defense is that it was reasonable because the dog was protecting property.
I
My
understand.
question is it reasonable if the property's not in danger for the dog to continue to attack?
Well, again, you're asking for my frame of mind of the dog.
No, I meant for the owner. Does the owner believe it's reasonable? Do you believe it's, I said, do you believe it's reasonable? Meaning, does the witness believe it's reasonable? The witness believed his training was reasonable to have an attack on the property. So if it's retreating off the property, does the witness still believe that it's a reasonable attack?
You can ask the question, answer the question as best you can. That's not helpful to me at all, but
I don't have any expertise into the mind state of the dog.
Wasn't about the mind state of the dog. I said you.
I do not know.
So you don't,
Well, I think it's quite reasonable for my dog to defend the property.
With an attack that causes permanent serious injury.
When trespassing, the damages are secondary to the offense. She came onto our property and was bitten. So if you're bitten while trespassing, that's different.
Let me tell you this, you are mistaken.
Well,
I have no more questions, Judge. I'm done. I see where this is going. I think I got,
All right, anything further, Mr. Richardson?
Just briefly, so what were the actual physical injuries you saw after she got bit?
and once again, it was 3 seconds from the time she bit her, I was on top of her. She had, I saw several puncture wounds along her wrist. At the time we went to the hospital, there was no blood. Okay, so upon that, I saw the puncture wounds, and initially when she was bitten, we sat her in her driver's side seat. At which time I had her touch her pinky, all her fingers together to her thumb to make sure she still had motor skills, neurological feel, and she still had feeling to her hands. So at that time, I said, can you feel anything? Can you squeeze your hand? Can you make a fist? She could do all of those things at that time. And at that time,
objection.
Well, I'll let him answer it. Go ahead.
Well, that wasn't, the question was, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, and I hate those kind of
I
questions.
mean, he's not asking questions. He's just basically pushing play and stepping back. He has a question, ask the question.
I asked him what injuries he saw.
And that
That's
was
what
beyond
he's,
the.
that's what he's testifying to.
All right, so that's true. We saw the injury on her hand. He witnessed her mobility in her hand. I guess that's acceptable.
yeah,
And you didn't see any other injuries on her
at
head?
that time, she didn't complain of any other injuries other than her wrist.
Did you observe her demeanor when she got to the emergency room?
Upon coming to the emergency room, she knew the admissions one, so everyone spoke and everybody, said, hey, everyone spoke to each other. We told her what happened, we told the admissions what happened, and then they started talking about other things. They were talking about her hair. and what she was doing.
So how would you generally describe her demeanor in the emergency room?
They were laughing and joking in the emergency room.
Further questions this time?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Dr. Deotta, you may step down. Kurt, at somehow, we're gonna have to get your exhibits into the record. I never did. What?
They were never moved to be admitted.
Well, he had them, yeah. I guess he hasn't arrested yet. Are you gonna move to admit them?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd move to admit defense exhibit A through D.
Any objection?
One thing I'd state is, as far as a survey, I don't believe it's a survey, but it is a sketch, and for demonstrative purposes and for reference, if you choose for that, no objection.
Well, I never saw it anyway, but, so it wasn't very demonstrative for me, but, A, B, C, and D will be admitted. Can we take that picture off the screen? This is exhibit.
Even if you
Email.
Yeah.
All right, could I have my screen back? Thank you. All right. Mr. Richardson, anything further?
No further witnesses at this time.
All right. I guess we're ready for argument. There are two issues. First, the GZ case. The officer petitioned pursuant to the statute.
Like rock, paper, scissors. and
With that, the dog caused a serious injury to an individual or dog attacked a person, and they're requesting a summons and complaint. And among the options are the dog shall be destroyed at the expense of the owner. The owner of the dog shall confine the dog to the premises, and then there are other sections for damages. as I indicated, the statute, I'm sure Mr. Reed's going to quote it, speaks to the court shall rather than may. Mr. Reed, I'll allow you to go first.
Thank you, Your Honor. As to the GZ case, as far as the definition of a dangerous animal is where we start, means a dog or other animal that bites or attacks a person.
According to
287, 321, sub A.
All right.
So that part of the statute's what applies here, dangerous animal. So the court has to make a determination. So that's the definition of dangerous animal. I believe the testimony was uncontroverted that the animal bit and attacked Cinda Miller. I think the argument that exhibits 1 and 2 are from rocks and falling on the ground just go to the weight and credibility that the court should give to the testimony of the defendant.
I was embarrassed.
I'll say no more on that. Moving on, then when you look at the statute, and I'm looking at 287, 322, Your Honor. Subparent 3, after a hearing, if an animal is found to be a dangerous animal, which I believe this falls squarely in the definition of dangerous animal, so check 1, it's a dangerous animal, and cause serious injury to, and I'm going to omit because there was no death, or death to an individual, the district magistrate, district court, or municipal court shall order destruction of the animal at the owner's expense. So the next question that the court looks at is the injuries. And 321 subparent E gives us definition. Means permanent serious disfigurement, serious impairment of health, or serious impairment of bodily function. It doesn't say permanent, but serious. Not being able to pick up a pen, dropping items, not being able to utilize your hand, having a doctor tell you there's not much we can do, to the point to her recollection, and it came in uncontroverted, that there's really nothing we can do. Those are dead nerves. She couldn't tell you the medical term, but she could tell you her diagnosis is, this is what you're stuck with. So it meets that definition of serious injury. She also testified that she's taken gabapentin, that she had taken Zymbalta, and that she has to choose between the bads moving forward. Do I want the pain, or do I want a little less pain, but all the nasty side effects of the narcotic or the drug in which they have to try to lessen the pain? So it fits squarely inside there. And again, this isn't proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a civil action. This is preponderance of the evidence. There was nothing that came in to controvert that. There was no challenge to the evidence that was elicited. Testimony is evidence, and those two elements have been met. The defendant apparently is attempting to argue that the dog was somehow provoked. He testified it wasn't tormented, so the portion of the statute talking about any exception, and the exceptions are found at 321A, I, and I, as well as I4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. The animal that bites or attacks a person who provokes or torments. That's subparent, that's A2. Provoke is defined, means a person, means to perform a willful act, omission, or that an ordinary person reason will conclude is likely to precipitate the bite or the attack of the animal. The defendant testified that he didn't believe anything she did was intended to provoke it, that it was a friendly neighborly conversation, and that it happened. He denied that she tormented the dog. So that provision is out. And it says an animal that bites or attacks a person who is knowingly trespassing on property of the animal's owner. That doesn't apply. Knowingly trespasses. Miss Miller's testimony is that she was by the mailboxes Deputy Merck concluded, based on interviewing all witnesses at the time contemporaneous to his investigation, that the attack occurred in the common driveway. It's only convenient after the fact that all of the serious ramifications come down that now Mr. Diatta is saying, oh, no, 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 no. It happened outside the fence, but on my property, by the way, on his property that nobody can seem to delineate the line. When push come to shove, the corner markers are somewhere else, and that's him attempting to show you where a line is at. And it's in direct contradiction to what the testimony of Cinda Miller was. So I do not believe, and by the way, a trespass, this is not a trespass. Appearing on someone's driveway to have a conversation is not trespass under the law. That's not a trespass. Climbing over the fence in the dark of night for other things would be a trespass. Being told by Mr. Diatta, which there's no testimony, do not come on my property, leave, 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 and you proceed is not a trespass. So even if you want to take the defendant's statement that she somehow crossed this imaginary line and that his dog, who's so well trained, sprung into action to protect his property, which, by the way, the statute does not allow for the protection of property. Just like you can't shoot somebody who's tearing up your yard. The force in which the dog was unreasonable, and therefore none of the exceptions listed in 321 apply. The court is left with one option and one option only, and that is the destruction of the animal. And again, I believe the evidence is clear. The statements are clear. It doesn't require permanency of the, not to mention all the scarring. I mean, the injuries are there. The court's seen the photo up there. She held her hand up. She's indicated she has scars every time she sees the scars. The alternative argument's also the fact that the mental health part of it, she can't even drive out her driveway. She has to go see a therapist. The testimony talks that of serious injury, the impairment of health. If you look at the definition of health in the dictionary, it includes mental and psychological well-being. Michigan has a long legacy of indicating psychological and mental health as being an injury. The sentencing guidelines call for that. Other areas of the law recognize that as requiring treatment. She was required to see a doctor, multiple doctor's appointments throughout the summer. All of those indicate and meet the burden of proof necessary for the elements in the GZ case, Your Honor. And we would ask that the court enter that the animal control immediately take possession of the animal and order that it be destroyed within the next 7 days in possession of animal control at the cost of the defendant. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Thank you, Your Honor. MCL 287-321A, parent 1 this case meets that exception. Animal bites or attacks a person who is knowingly trespassing on the property of the animal's owner. You heard testimony today, she knowingly trespassed, walked into his driveway, and that's when the animal.
Well, stepping onto someone's property is not the same as trespassing. Trespassing is a specific definition. There are several different kinds, but a UPS driver that drives up to your house and walks up to your driveway to drop off a package is not trespassing. A census taker that comes to your door to ask you census questions is not a trespasser. Someone that steps foot on your property is not a trespasser. Also, there's a factor of knowingly. First of all, well, I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. She was uninvited. There's a no trespassing sign. There's a beware of dog sign. She testified she was aware of all of those things. I think that more than meets the knowingly aspect. She'd never been on his property before. She'd never been invited on his property before. She walked on his property nonetheless into his driveway. Exception number 3, an animal is responding in a manner that is ordinary and reasonable to protect a person engaged in lawful activity. Defendants engaged in going to work, a lawful activity, it is reasonable to expect that his dog would defend him from someone approaching him or his property, especially a dog that plenty of people have watchdogs, dogs that are trained to protect their property. That's one of their instincts. It's one of the reasons people keep dogs. Now, it meets 2 exceptions. The dog is not a dangerous animal by definition. Moving on. Serious injury. This is a diagnosis for the court. She sat here and held up her hand, could move her hand. The court could see with its own eyes. Everyone here could see there was no injuries. These photographs were taken from the day 5 months ago. She's sitting here and she can't tell us that there's a diagnosis of permanent disfiguring injury. There's no neurological testing. There's no verification of any of the things she's saying. In fact, she really had no idea what any of her injuries were. She couldn't explain that to anyone here. We don't see any serious impairment of health or bodily function. She seems to be just sitting here. I don't see any impairment of her health or bodily function, Your Honor. And the court hasn't heard any evidence from an objective expert or scientific analysis documenting that in any way she has any injury right now sitting here today, other than what she testified to. So it does not reach the threshold of a serious injury, Your Honor. For these reasons, we'd ask the court to rule in our favor.
Thank you. Anything further?
Just briefly, Your Honor, just wanted to point out that in addition, the statute specifies that after a hearing, the court may order destruction of the animal if the court finds that the animal is a dangerous animal that didn't cause serious injury or death to a person, but is likely to cause serious injury or death to a person. That I think is important to note here. We've got multiple times that this dog has been off property. He's aware it was off property. He put a beware of dog sign. He put a no trespassing sign. He put logs up to block the dog from going underneath. He's taken steps now to have an invisible or electric fence put in. This is a dangerous animal. He's aware it's a dangerous animal. And even if the court is to somehow find that this wasn't a serious injury per statute that Ms. Miller has suffered, I think that there's ample information to show that this dog is likely to cause that in the future, especially listening to the testimony of the defendant. He doesn't seem to grasp the danger that this dog presents. If this were a smaller person, a child, this could have been very different. I think that the risk is there. And again, the statute allows for future issues to be a reason for the court to take action now. Thank you. Oh, as far as the tickets, I believe that it was established that this all happened in Sturgis in St. Joseph County, Michigan, that this individual is the owner of the dog. The dog was off property and did in fact bite Ms. Miller. I don't think that any of that was in controversy today. So I'd ask that the court find him guilty of the 2 citations that were issued by the St. Joseph County Animal Control. Thank you.
Thank you. This was enlightening. I had hoped to see a picture of the dog. Akitas come in a couple different varieties, and some look more like a lion and some look more like a wolf. This is apparently a hybrid with other dogs mixed. I don't know how big it is. I don't know how much the dog weighed. Akitas are, as I indicated, somewhat rare, but they were bred to kill bears and deer. So I don't exactly know what the dog looks like. Regarding the tickets, let's see if I can get back to the, darn, every time I open something else, it closed that out. That is in the county ordinance, which I indicated tracks the state statute in many regards. It's found in section 10. I was going to print this, maybe I should. Dog at large, section 10.1. A dog is running at large unaccompanied by its owner or is engaged in lawful hunting and is not under reasonable control of its owner or without a license. I think this dog was unlicensed at the time, what I recall, but that didn't come in. I don't think this dog was at large. I think he was there with it in its immediate proximity. His intention wasn't to let it take off. This is an unfortunate circumstance where they were both at the same place at the same time. So I don't find that he is guilty of having a dog at large, but I do find that he's guilty of section 10.4. A dog, licensed or unlicensed, has attacked or bitten a person or other animal. This dog bit Miss Miller. And as I indicated, that's a misdemeanor punishable by up to 90 days in jail and a fine of up to $500. So we'll come back to that. The county show cause statute is at section 11, and it's not, doesn't exactly mirror the state statute. Section 11.1, if a dog has bitten another person, the district court may order the dog euthanized or otherwise restricted. If the owner disobeys this order, the owner may be punished pursuant to the sanction statute. So this isn't under the county ordinance, it's under state statute, which is the old dog law, and that is in the language of may. I have lots of dog cases. I've been here for 42 years. So when I was prosecutor, I used to have lots of dog cases, and that was 22 years. And we always took them very seriously. As I indicated, I helped write the county dog ordinance twice. And traditionally, we'd give on their first day in the office, we'd give the dog file to the newest assistant and say, these are hard, good luck. And as a judge, I've had, I don't know, dozens of cases over the years. I had one just this week where someone has a pit bull that they can't control. They're elderly. On 2 occasions, the pit bull got away from the elderly people that were walking it, took off a couple blocks away and bit someone. On 2 occasions, people came to their door, wants to pay the rent, and the dog nailed them, and wants to deliver a picture, and the dog bit them. And I did not yet make a finding that it was a serious disfigurement or a permanent impairment of bodily function. So we're still dealing with that. And I've ordered them to do some things, and we're going to revisit that in December. As I've said many times, most of my cases involve pit bulls. But there's different kinds of liability. The dog bite was a misdemeanor under the county ordinance. This show cause is not a crime. It's a question of what I'm going to do about the dog. And then there may also be a question as to what is your civil liability. I'm not dealing with that here today, but you can't plant landmines in your yard and say, hey, beware of landmines. Then the census taker comes in and steps on a landmine and blows up. There's liability in that regard. And what I told the people with the pit bull this week, they said, well, the dog was supposed to be in a back room and my son didn't put it in the back room. And I said, well, it's the equivalent of having a hand grenade wired to your front door. And somebody was supposed to disengage the hand grenade before they opened the door. Well, my son forgot to do it. They opened the door and they blew up. Well, that's not an answer to that question. So you have a powerful dog who is trained and bred to protect its property. Nobody was doing anything wrong. You had the dog inside your fence. You've gone to considerable expense to make this fence. And since this happened, you have gone to considerable effort and expense to try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I will tell you, from the first moment I got this petition, I was concerned about shall. This is a dog bite, and I'm ashamed to hear your answer. This is inflicted by a dog bite. You can see the puncture marks. The other may have been a scratch. Even more, to consider this was done through her blue jeans. Powerful bite. And the question doesn't rise or fall on whether this happened on your property or in the shared easement property. She says it happened out in the dirt portion of the road. She says she could see the mailboxes from where she was. Her version is she parked only once, went to get the mail, got nailed, never got the mail. She denies that she ever moved the car or got out of it again. So the stories in that regard don't match. But what is clear is that she got bit. Now, we're all operating from the same choir book here. We're referring to the dangerous animal statute, which is 287321. As Mr. Reed argues, a dangerous animal means a dog or other animal that bites or attacks a person. So that's a dangerous animal. This dog bit and attacked. The defendant himself referred to it as an attack. And certainly Ms. Miller believes it was an attack that still haunts her to this day. Now, there are some exceptions. An animal that bites or attacks a person who is knowingly trespassing on the property of the animal's owner. That's not an exception. Simply walking over on someone's property isn't trespassing, and knowingly, even if she says she wasn't there, but even if she was, she doesn't know where the line is. And she wasn't there for any nefarious purpose. Another exception is that it attacks a person who provokes or torments the animal. She certainly was not tormenting the animal, and she did not provoke it. Provoke means to perform a willful act or admission that an ordinary and reasonable person would conclude is likely to precipitate a bite or attack by the animal. Well, for one thing, she didn't even know the dog was there. And so she wasn't doing anything that would cause a reasonable person to think they were going to get bit. So that isn't an exception either. And the third, that the animal is responding in a manner that an ordinary and reasonable person would conclude was designed to protect a person, if that person is engaged in lawful activity or is the subject of an assault. He is not, he is engaged in a lawful activity. It isn't like he climbed over the junkyard fence and got bit by the dog. He is out ready to go to work and greet his neighbor. So a reasonable person would conclude was designed to protect a person. Well, you didn't need to be protected from anything, or you were subject of an assault. So we're going there to the mind of the dog. The dog was protecting you. So is having a spring-loaded shotgun connected to your front door, or a hand grenade, or a landmine there to afford some sort of protection. The dog was being a dog. The dog was being an Akita, which is a powerful dog with certain breeding and genetic history. So the dog was protecting you. That's not the question. Would a reasonable person conclude it was designed to protect a person if that person is engaged in unlawful activity or the subject of an assault? This dog protected you while your neighbor was talking to you out by the mailbox. The dog had previously bit the neighbor's dog. Her version was quite credible. You weren't there, so you didn't see what happened. And the very night before, the dog was out, and Mr. Eicher called, and you came and got the dog. Well, here the dog didn't escape under the fence or do anything to get out, but you have a powerful, dangerous animal. I find that the dog bit or attacked a person, and none of the exceptions under 287-321 apply. So we go to section 322. Three, after a hearing, which we just had, if the animal is found to be a dangerous animal, and it was. So from the very first day I saw this, the question was, what is a serious injury? Because I don't have any discretion. If the court finds that the dangerous animal caused a serious injury to an individual, district court shall order the destruction of the animal at the owner's expense. Ms. Davis goes on to say, well, if you find that it does not cause a serious injury, you may still order destruction of the animal or other options. The county ordinance speaks to that. That's what I'm struggling with the Colon case. I can't tell yet whether these people have serious injuries. They all got bit by a pit bull and they weren't very happy about it. But so a serious injury is defined. A serious injury means a permanent, serious disfigurement, serious impairment of health, or serious impairment of a body function or purpose. These bites to her hip and buttocks, she indicate, are still causing some discomfort and tightness and pain, but the injuries to her wrist, and she is qualified to testify about the nature of her injuries. I didn't need a neuropsychologist or a neurologist or an emergency room doctor to come in and tell me that she's in constant pain. It's not imagined pain, it's real pain. And the testimony, although it was hearsay, it was admitted, as they told her, we don't know if this is ever going to get better or not. And we can't do anything about these injuries. And you may need carpal tunnel surgery that may not repair the damage. So I find that she has a serious injury and a serious impairment of health or bodily function of a person, which leaves the court with no discretion. I find this is a dangerous animal which attacked or bit a person and does not fit any of the exceptions to that statute. I find that it did cause a serious injury or death to an individual. And Ms. Davis went on to think, is there reason to believe it could do this again? possibly yes. They've made every exception to try to keep the dog in there, but it could bite somebody on their property. So I don't have any discretion, which I was concerned about from the beginning. I don't enjoy this. This dog is going to have to be destroyed. It's going to have to be euthanized. Mr. Reed asked it be done within 7 days. You have 21 days to appeal this. So I'm going to leave you the appeal period, but the dog needs to be taken into possession of the St. Joseph County Animal Control. In fact, it was supposed to upon the filing of the petition, and I didn't catch it. So I take zero joy in this. I'm not going to do the sentence on the misdemeanor until this dog is transferred to the St. Joseph County Animal Control Office here in Centerville.
It must be immediately transferred.
Well,
Your Honor, the
Tomorrow.
defendant plans on appealing. We'd ask for no action to be taken for at least 21 days. Your Honor.
all right, we certainly won't do anything to destroy the dog, but the dog shall be transferred to the property of the St. Joseph County Animal Control by 5 o'clock tomorrow. You open till 5 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
This is a part of your family. You and your wife and your daughters love this dog. I'm not oblivious to that. But with owning a big, powerful, protective dog comes responsibility. And this statute, when I make the findings that I make, compels me to order that the dog be destroyed. Doesn't compel me to like it. So the dog shall be transferred to the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Department by 5 o'clock tomorrow. I'm going to set sentencing in this matter, the misdemeanor. And I'm cognizant also of your missing your office hours.
Your Honor, animal control is asked to be between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. tomorrow
All right.
for staffing purposes to put the dog in the kennel.
And no action shall be taken regarding the euthanization of the dog until the appeal period.
Or just to clarify, the people have no objection to the owners visiting the animal at animal control if the court is okay with that.
These are tough. What are your office hours on Monday, Dr. Deotta?
This upcoming Monday,
Yes, October 9th.
I mean, I can make arrangements to do whatever.
All right, sentence is set for Monday, October 9th at 11 a.m. The sentence is going to be a fine unless the dog is not in the possession of the St. Joseph County Animal Control, where I have up to 90 days jail. I'm sure you're going to comply with the order. Then the dog will be maintained. No action shall be taken by the dog regarding the dog. And you have a right to appeal this. And the dog doesn't understand what's going on. Dog's like, why is this happening to me? But it's happening. All right.
Your Honor, it sounds like the dog's in Battle Creek. He has to work all day tomorrow. Could you give him?
At least that following day, because I have to work. I'm taking work off today. I got a full schedule. I'm always booked till 6, and the dog's in Battle Creek.
All right. Well, the dog's in Battle Creek, so people in Battle Creek are endangered. All right. You will have it there by 5 o'clock Friday. October 6th. And we'll do the sentencing on October 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Thank you. All right. That completes this record.